Good evening, good morning, wherever you may be around the globe, in the chat room, on another planet, or on the other side. This is Late Night in the Midlands, and I am Michael Vera. And tonight we're doing a little bit of a different type of show. We've got pretty much a split show here this evening. I will have first with me Michael McCray. And he is a dedicated human rights and public interest advocate. I will then have with me Thomas Freed, and we'll be going down much the same road. By the way, this broadcast is coming at you live from the East Coast of the United States, the capital city, Columbia, South Carolina, where it was a nice, comfortable day. And then by night, it's like a desert here this time of the year. You know, when the sun's shining, it's good, and then that sun goes down, and man, does it get cold out there. But nevertheless, I'm pretty warm where I am here in my studio, nice and cozy, ready to go here tonight. And the website, www.latenightinthemidlands.com. Go on over, become a member, and be informed, and by all means inform others. And Barack Hussein Obama is getting ready to give his State of the Union address, and all these things happen, the debates and these speeches they give, all this stuff happens they wait till 9 o'clock. So let's wait till Michael Vera goes on the air, And that's what I got a pretty good time slot here, I guess, because it seems like that's when everybody decides to do everything. People they finished their dinner, they've digested, maybe you've gotten the kids to bed, whatever it might be, and then 9 o'clock, bam, it's just that magic hour, I guess. Of course, in the Eastern time zone. Now, I don't know if it's as magical in other time zones, but yeah, so he's getting ready to tell more lies and give you more reasons why, your gun should be taken from you, even though he's protected by guns. He'll want yours gone. So it's going to be a different kind of State of the Union. He says it's not going to be traditional. Not going to be traditional. Yeah, believe me, he's going to push his agenda harder than he ever has before in this last year. He will. You think things are bad now? Wait, there's a whole lot more good stuff coming. Good meaning Obama. So, anyhow, so I won't be keeping tabs on that. I guess I'll try. I don't like listening to him speak anyways. I don't. I think the last time I listened to any speech he's really given was when he was first running the first time. I think that was it. I listened to a few then. But since then, it's all the same stuff. It's just the same old. Anyhow. All right, so I want to get into a little bit of news here before we take our break, come back with our guest. So it should be interesting. I hope some of you will call in tonight. Maybe you've got some opinions, some questions. Tonight, you could say it's somewhat political, I guess, but, we curve it all kinds of ways. So, it won't be your typical boring political conversation, I don't think. I hope not. Alien abductee Sue Sill of Outland, Huddersfield wants to prove the truth is out there. She says, they ask, are we alone in the universe? She says absolutely not. Sue is 57, and she's had many encounters with UFOs and believes she was abducted in 2010. Her latest experience was just last month, she says, when she filmed a light in the sky above her home. And you can see all this and read about all this over on latenightinthemidlands.com under the News and Discovery tab. That's where it is posted. Wouldn't mind talking to her, as a matter of fact. So anybody could get contact for this woman, get it, and we'll have her on, see what she's got to say. Have scientists detected gravitational waves? Recent rumors suggest that gravitational waves may have been directly detected for the first time. And by the way, speaking of such energies and waves, riding the waves, I've got Crow 777 joining me on Thursday. And we'll be talking about this type of thing, these solar waves or whatever you want to call them. But this says recent rumors suggest that gravitational waves may have been directly detected for the first time. And again, this is linked up on News and Discovery as well on our website. Ripples, they say, in the fabric of space and time that carry energy across the universe were first proposed by Albert Einstein as a consequence of his general theory of relativity back in 1916. While strong circumstantial evidence for these waves has existed for years, scientists have never been able to directly detect them. Now, however, an experiment known as the Advanced Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, say that real fast, so we'll say LIGO, might have actually found something. So they think they may have found something. You can go check this out again on latenightinthemidlands.com under News and Discovery. And, of course, there's a link that takes you to much, much more than what I'm even covering here. What do we got here? Sheeps being used to supply transplant organs. Saw this today. Now, this could be a good reason why we've got such a large population of sheep. I'm not kidding here. And I mean people sheeple, all right? So scientists have been creating human-animal hybrids to help meet the growing demand for donor organs. How'd you like to be a part of that? You might have been. You never know. With transplant patients often having to wait years for organs, scientists have been looking for increasingly unorthodox ways to try and meet the ever-growing demand. One of the most promising ideas, one which could have the potential to solve the problem entirely, they say, involves injecting human stem cells into an animal embryo with the aim of growing actual human organs that can be retrieved for use in transplants once the animal grows and matures. You're telling me they don't have another way they could do this? A better way to do this? Really? Come on. So you want to do this, grow these organs, and yeah, they want to make sure, hey, ooh, look, these organs do grow in these animals. Before you know it, you're going to have a man sheep with Hulk Hogan type arms walking down the street. You're going to meet that in a dark alley, right? Directly to you from Plum Island. The research, they say, is certainly not without its fair share of controversy. However, in particular, with regard to the extent to which the human cells will actually become incorporated into the host. And you know where you can go see more on this, right? So yeah, they want to grow human organs in animal. How would you like to be an animal? Look what happens to these creatures. I'll tell you what, if they really are God's creatures, boy, somebody's got a lot of explaining to do. 10 U.S. sailors in Iranian custody. 10 American sailors were being held in Iranian custody after two small U.S. naval craft apparently briefly entered Iranian territorial waters. A U.S. senior defense official said on Tuesday, that would be today. The official, however, expects the situation to be resolved quickly. A senior administration official said there is nothing to indicate this was anything hostile. I want to go back to the title of this. In Iranian custody. And he says this was nothing hostile about this. Anyways, adding that the U.S. has received high-level assurances that the sailors will be released promptly. So that's going on now. And you can see if Barack Insane Obama talks about it at all tonight when he starts opening his trap, which he may have already done. I don't know. I'm not watching. I would never distract my show like that. And, there's a lot of things I might miss a show for, if need be. Barack Obama speaking is not one of them. Definitely not one of them. All right, so I do want to take my break. When we come back, I will bring aboard my guest. I've got two tonight, and we'll get this conversation started. And if you want to get involved later, you may do so. And you may do so by calling in at 803-392-4566. You can also call us on Skype, LNM Radio. But folks, don't call in yet. Wait, let us get going just a little bit. Wait till I get the guest on, and I don't know, we get maybe tonight, because there's two guests, I'll say wait till we get like 20, 25 minutes into it. And then if you got a question, we'll take your call. All right? Last night we had a ton of people calling in real early in the show, and I don't take calls early. And, you know, I'm not desperate like that where I'll just interrupt the host show to take a call. So, you know, we're going to take them when we take them, and that's later in the show. So with that, folks, this is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm Michael Vera, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
This is Dick Farrell, here to tell you about OxySilver. Legally available only through CureShop.com and HealthyWorldStore.com. Don't be fooled buying silver products from copycats and criminals. You've heard Dr. Leonard Horowitz and experts urge you to avoid deadly vaccinations and illegal operators selling stolen OxySilver and OxySilver copycats. You've heard experts tell you about suppression in alternative medicine and confusing propaganda in healthcare and the truth movement. Read Dr. Horowitz's book, Healing Celebrations, to learn how miracle healings can be made to happen through faith, prayer, and a pure diet. Get great immunity using vitamin C, D, and OxySilver. Liquid Dentist GI Flora Pro, a top-shelf probiotic. Use Green Harvest as a great-tasting meal substitute for energizing organic nutrients and losing weight. And Zeolove, and natural clays for detoxifying your body. More advice, all these products and more are available from theCureShop.com. Including OxySilver, the world's most powerful silver hydrosol. Electro-energized to put risky injections, toxic antibiotics, and deadly drug pushers out of business. OxySilver is covalently bonded to water. Unlike any other silver product using the frequency of chlorophyll 528, what Dr. Horowitz explains is pure tone love, the universal healer. NASA originally developed covalently body silver hydrosols to keep astronauts healthy in space. Dr. Horowitz added the 528 frequency to NASA's formula and more. OxySilver works three ways to electrocute dangerous germs better than anything, far better than all leading silver products, and without any risk. OxySilver oxygenates and resonates with 528 for faster healing. So help save lives, putting drug lords and criminals out of business, and keep the LNM network broadcasting. Register for our free cooperative at healthworldaffiliates.com/4948. That's healthyworldaffiliates.com/4948. And buy OxySilver and other great products in package specials at great discounts from theCureShop.com. Buy OxySilver, GI Flora Pro, Green Harvest, Zeolove, and Love Minerals at great discounts at CureShop.com. That's CureShop.com with two P's. CureShoppe.com. Or call toll-free at 1-888-621-7611. That's 1-888-621-7611. Do it now.
L&M fans and late-nighters around the world. Have you captured something on that photo or video of yours? Send in your photos and videos of ghosts, orbs, UFOs, Planet X, or just about anything content related by submitting them to the Late Night in the Midlands Facebook group or fan page, or you can submit them on Twitter using hashtag LNM Radio. And if you would rather stay anonymous, then email them to us at mv@latenightinthemidlands.com. We will share them at our new fan page on the LNM website and may even ask you to come on air a few minutes and tell us about your photo or video. Late Night in the Midlands. We're building a bridge to the truth and beyond.
Share our content and use the hashtag LNM Radio for your chance to win a free subscription. Those who use it at least 10 times a month will find themselves entered into a drawing every month to win a free 2-month subscription from Late Night in the Midlands. So spread our news, spread our website, and use hashtag LNM Radio.
The LNM Radio Network offers a moderated chat room at www.latenightinthemidlands.com. Just click the chat and listen page from the drop-down menu at the top of any page on the website, or click the Listen Live button at the top of the homepage at www.latenightinthemidlands.com.
Is there proof of God's existence in our government's records? Author Jose Collazo brings his years of research into this stunning question to light with his new book. Discover how new and experimental technologies may change our world forever and uncover monumental proof and answers to mankind's greatest questions in God Does Exist, No More Nuclear Testing, and more.
You could find Jose Collazo's book, America's New Slavery, on Amazon.com. This show is for the mentally sane and for those who accept an alternate reality to the lie you have been told. If you're politically correct, politically brainwashed, or politically insane, then I recommend you turn the dial immediately and go back to the lies and distorted reality that makes you feel secure in your unsecure life. We cover everything, should not be mistaken for we go along to get along. We are not those other shows who guide you down a dark hall because seeing is not beneficial to their bottom line. No, we turn a light on so you can truly see what lies ahead. We are not alternative, but if we were, then we would be an alternative to the lies, not the news, because sometimes the alternative is no better. We are independent. We are LNM, and we are saying it like it is. LNM Radio, exposing the truth, one show at a time. Attention LNM Radio Network listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the LNM Radio Network by calling 605-562-4203? No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 605-562-4203 to listen to the LNM Radio Network on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
Become a late nighter without the late nights. And subscribe now to help Late Night in the Midlands bring you the best guests with the best information.
Hey, late nighters. I have a secret I want to share with you. What if I told you there's a way to hear some of our show content free on YouTube? Well, it just so happens there's a guy who is honest and supports Late Night in the Midlands big time. And he owns a YouTube channel I highly recommend. Non-Human Entities. Yes, non-human entities. And if you do not have a pencil handy, no sweat. You can just click one of the many banners on our website. Non-human entities. That's non-human entities. Again, just look for them on YouTube or click the banner on latenightinthemidlands.com for non-human entities.
On the East Coast of the United States, from the capital city, Columbia, South Carolina, you're listening to Late Night in the Midlands with your host, Michael Vera. To talk to Michael Vera, dial 803-392-4566 or around the world on Skype. Just use Skype ID LNM Radio.
All right, we are back. This is Late Night in the Midlands. I'm Michael Vera, and yeah, little David Bowie in honor of, his life, because as you know, it was announced, I believe, yesterday that David Bowie had passed away. I think he was 69 and no longer with us, so... we're all going to get there, folks. We're all going to get there. I wonder if he was interested in the other side. I bet he is now. I bet he's got a big, major interest in it now. It's funny. We have to talk about this sometime. Maybe I could get Ryan on or Ira on, and we could just have this conversation. But it's kind of crazy when you look at a lot of these celebrities, right? Whoever it might be, Elvis, David Bowie, the list goes on and on. The pudding guy there, Bill Cosby, any of these guys, right? You almost got to wonder if these people, you've seen it in the movies and ha, can you imagine if? But what if? What if they do sign some deal with the devil, if you will? I mean, they have all this fame, blah, blah, and then it just seems like they get to this point where, bam, it's time to pay the piper. Like, look at Cosby, all was going great, blah, blah, blah. He's the pudding guy, and, how everybody wants him in their home, and all, and it's like, hey, Mr. Cosby, it's time to pay the piper. You get these celebrities like Elvis and David Bowie and people like that, and it's like all of a sudden something horrible. They have awesome opportunity. I mean, they're famous, they're all this and that, and then bam, it's like they pay hard. It's like I don't know. It's just kind of weird how that works. Maybe it happens with regular people on a regular basis too, and I just don't know. I don't know. I guess I don't know. All right. I want to tell you a little bit about my guest tonight. We'll start with our first guest, and that's Michael McCray, who I'll be dialing up here in just a few moments and bringing him on board. And by the way, before we even do that, I do want to give a shout out to our radio affiliates, and I also want to direct you to the website. The website's www.latenightinthemidlands.com. Go on over, become a member, and be informed. By all means, inform others. So, and our radio affiliates, High Point Radio, the top of New Jersey, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. That's where they cover, and they bring us in on 1620 a.m. Then, of course, we've got our newest affiliate, the Voice of Onset Harbor Radio in Wareham, Massachusetts, WAFR 85.5 FM. And we've got K98 Talk, hello to all of you, and SHR Media and Pundit Press. So we thank all of you for running us across your airwaves and introducing us to your listeners as well. And coming out of Massachusetts and on 87.5 FM, they bring us in live. So if you're hearing us on your radio in Wareham, Massachusetts, you're hearing us live. So call-ins and such would apply to you as well. All right. So that being said, Michael McCray, is a dedicated human rights and public interest advocate, a Harvard University, American University, and Georgetown University Law Center alumnus. Michael is committed to education and teaches community economic development and finance at Prairie View A&M University as a visiting graduate professor. A conservative Democrat, Michael began his career in public service as a community and economic development specialist who pioneered new technologies at the U.S. Department of Agriculture from the White House Empowerment Zones initiative under the Clinton administration, a national board member of Federal Employed Women, Legal Education Fund, so much more. And when he comes on, I will as always, ask my guests to elaborate a little bit on their background. Folks, we have people on this show from all walks of life. That, doesn't matter what you're labeled, Democrat, Republican, I don't know. I wouldn't say Satanist. How about atheist? It doesn't matter. Whatever you a Christian, stamp whatever label you want on yourself. We talk to everybody. We may not agree with everybody, but we talk with everybody. So we're going to talk with Michael here coming up next. So let me get him dialed up here. Hopefully everything works well. All right.
Hello?
Good evening, Michael. This is Michael Vera with Late Night in the Midlands. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. Happy New Year, Michael.
Well, Happy New Year to you, too. And I want to welcome you to the show, and we are live right now. So welcome aboard, and I thank you for spending a little bit of time with us tonight.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Michael, I thought maybe first we can you could give a little bit of background and then take us where we're going tonight. Whistleblowers, treason versus patriotism. Lead us up to that.
Okay. In terms of background, shall we start with my background or kind of jump towards the topic?
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, sure. A little bit of your background and what got you so interested in these topics today. I think everybody should be interested in.
Sure. Thank you, Michael.
Sure.
Again, my name is Michael McCray, and I happen to grow up in the rural South. I hail from Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and unfortunately, my hometown has been rated the worst place to live in America for 2 years in a row. And so from there, I've kind of got a feel for underserved communities, low-income places, and, I kind of have a passion for helping out places, kind of like my own hometown. In 1992, I got the opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. I went there. I was actually in law school, and I was studying at Georgetown University Law Center. And I was working on a JD and MBA in finance. And I tell people a funny thing happened on my way to Wall Street. My governor ran for president, and he won. And so with that, I kind of changed my path that I was really trying to head somewhere towards corporate finance. But I got the pleasure of working on a White House initiative for the Clinton administration. Mm-hmm. And that program was known as the Federal Empowerment Zones Program. It was called EZEC, and that stood for Empowerment Zones and Enterprise Communities. Anyway, that was a $4 billion appropriation that was designed to help to rebuild and reinvigorate poor and distressed and underserved communities like my hometown. And so in this sense, I was going to law school at night, and I was working on this federal program, this White House initiative in the daytime. And, I tell people, it was really cool living in Washington when I had the keys to the White House. But, it was kind of the best of both worlds, and I was really enjoying the work. Unfortunately, I discovered waste, fraud, and abuse within this program when I discovered that a $40 million grant application was about to be funded to a nonprofit organization that I knew didn't have the capacity to administer the funds. And that's how I became a federal whistleblower. And so I blew the whistle, and now mind you, it's a proverbial whistle. There's no actual whistle to blow. And most people don't, go to school and decide that they want to be, they think that whistleblowing is a great career.
That's right.
All it takes to become a whistleblower is to ask, the wrong question at the wrong time. And mine was a simple inquiry. Hey, guys, should we really give $40 million to an organization that we know lacks the capacity to manage it? That's all it took. In some senses, this was kind of, I was about to say it was the last Clinton scandal, but, hey, who knows? There may be more. But this was this was unreported when, it was an unreported scandal because this was the time when Mike Espy you may remember him. He was the Secretary of Agriculture, and he eventually was forced to resign based on $40,000 worth of gifts, and I think some football tickets or something along those lines, some inappropriate gifts. The Clinton administration forced him to resign. That's what he was. That's kind of what took him out. But what he got away with was he steered $40 million to a congressional district, which was his previous district. He had been a senator. He'd been a congressman, and he got tapped to join the Clinton administration. And his brother Henry was running for his vacated seat. So the long and short of it was that he hand-selected money to go to that congressional district, even though the nonprofit there couldn't properly administer the funds. Now, when you're in Congress, back in the good old days, you could earmark funds and projects. So that was perfectly legal as a congressman. But when you do it from the executive, that's problematic. That's a crime. And so, I reported that. Long and short of it is, SB stepped down. It changed my life forever. Basically, I lost that career. And I became a federal whistleblower, and I started to work with other advocates and other whistleblowers. So that was my journey into whistleblowing, and we started doing this conference in Washington, D.C. The conference now is known as the Whistleblower Summit for Civil and Human Rights. And back then, it was known in 2007, 2008, it was called Washington Whistleblowers Week. And so I've kind of emerged as a leader in the First Amendment and whistleblower advocacy community. And I wound up meeting a friend of mine. Her name was Marcel Reed. I had served on the Association of Community Organizations for Reform, now ACORN. I was a national board member from Georgia ACORN. And Marcel was also on the board. And she was there when there was a multi-million-dollar embezzlement back in 2008. And so she knew my background, again, law, finance, I've got an MBA, CPA, all that good stuff. And she came to me to help because she was tapped to be on a interim management committee, a governance committee, that was supposed to investigate the embezzlement and then to make recommendations to reform and reorganize ACORN. So that story became known as the ACORN 8. And so I've been involved with whistleblowing. I've been involved with whistleblowers. I helped to organize whistleblower conferences. It's kind of been a passion of mine, based on all the hardships and stuff that I experienced when I blew the whistle and really got no relief. And so that kind of brings us, that gives you my background in terms of my perspective on whistleblowing and how important it is.
Right. And it's a shame because there are people out there today who make especially with the internet, that make a mockery of whistle. I mean, every time you turn around, everybody and their uncle comes out with a YouTube video about being a whistleblower. And I think it degrades what whistleblowing really is.
Right. Well, even worse, Michael, when we kind of talk about whistleblowing, the term whistleblower was probably first coined in the 1970s, most likely around, Vietnam era with Daniel Ellsberg and the Pentagon Papers and, all of that.
Yeah.
But most people don't realize is that the first whistleblower protection law was written on July 30th, 1778 by the Continental Congress. And so really there's a correlation between whistleblowing. I mean, it's the ultimate expression of the First Amendment. The citizen being able to tell the truth about misfeasance going on with their government. I mean, that's what a whistleblower is. And so one of the, there's actually a change.org petition that we've got going now where we're trying to change the definition of whistleblower in the dictionary. When you look it up, it says that basically a whistleblower is somebody who discloses something secret. But the problem is when you look at all the synonyms for whistleblowers, it's like 30 pejoratives. It starts off with rat, faint, tattletale. It really doesn't talk about what people are doing and what the sacrifices they're making, really in a simple attempt to fix a wrong. Because really all the whistleblowers I know, they saw something wrong and they tried to fix it. And, your life becomes, totally, your life gets turned upside down. And so that's one of the reasons that's one of the major focuses the reason that we have the conference. Because one is we want to change the public perception of whistleblowers and basically put it in its proper historical perspective that it is something that's patriotic. And the other thing that we do is most people, when they think about whistleblowers, they think about it from the vantage point of public health and safety. Somebody blows a whistle because the nuts and bolts weren't put on the airplane, or somebody blows a whistle on pink sludge in the meat supply. But most people aren't looking at it through the prism of human rights, human rights, and then also civil rights. And that's kind of what we do at the Whistleblower Summit.
Right.
So we're bringing it all together.
Well, that's fantastic. Now, just to give people an idea, what is it like being a whistleblower? I mean, are they always out to get you once you do something like that? I mean, it's like you said, it's life-changing, and I'm sure it is. To what degree, though? Right.
No, it can be devastating, Michael, and it's that again, that's another reason that we have the conference. And the reason I say that is in addition to the legislative advocacy work that we do, and we try to pass better laws. But what happens is you get totally isolated. And you lose your job, you lose your career, you lose your family and loved ones. I mean, it really sucks. Yeah. But it's a very powerful thing, and it's a devastating thing. And so, theoretically, you wind up facing the total weight of either the federal government or, generally speaking, some powerful, corporation that's really out to destroy you. I think probably the best example is when you think about all the president's men and Watergate. Are you familiar with the name Frank Wills?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Frank Wills was the security guard that reported the break-in for Watergate. Okay?
Oh, okay.
He happened to be an African-American security guard, and the Nixon administration turned all guns on him. And ultimately, he's a guy who was doing his job, did absolutely nothing wrong, did his job as best he saw. And he wound up dying destitute, I think living with his mother in Georgia or South Carolina. Now, Michael, what really gets us is that every other person associated with, Watergate, including the criminals, went on to fame. And we've got the Washington Post won the Pulitzer Prize. Woodward and Bernstein wrote best-selling authors, and there was a book made, a Hollywood movie made. Even G. Gordon Liddy wound up being an author and having G-Man. He has a radio show. Everybody else involved, including the crooks, at the end of the day, benefited and were able to move on, except for the one person who did the right thing for the right reason. And we see a lot of that. As a matter of fact, we do at the Whistleblower Summit, we have a whistleblower award named in honor of Frank Wills. It's for people who sacrifice, all for the sake of speaking truth to power. So that's one way that we try to recognize people like that and what whistleblowers actually go through, and the tremendous cost they pay, for trying to make society a better place.
Yeah, and that's great that you do that too, because I'm sure there's a lot of people like me who will think about it for a second and say, "No, who is he?" And you're right, that's not right. These people have risked a lot. They've put so much at stake to get the truth out, and made people's lives better because of it. And they deserve some recognition. So that's awesome that you do that.
Well, Michael, let me add this. Think about it this way. Without whistleblowers, again, I call whistleblowers, I say the whistleblowers are the fifth estate. And what I mean by that is that there's no free press without news sources. There's no congressional oversight without government informants. Whistleblowers are the fifth estate that protect our freedom and liberty. I mean, that's the connection and the correlation back to the First Amendment, which is the foundation for our democracy. So it's really foundational and very important, and it's the true exercise of our First Amendment rights. But again, it becomes, at best a thankless task, and often, I mean, even the victories, they're Pyrrhic victories at best, because you've got guys that wind up fighting, decades over cases, and some people, to get no relief, and then, even the ones that win, the few that win, next thing you know, they're getting audited by the IRS, and, it's still, the government never is relentless. It never gives up.
Right. Now I want to ask you this. What would be the difference between whistleblowers and treasonists? And I ask this because of, the whole Snowden thing. And, it seems like now under the Obama administration especially that, it's not good to be a whistleblower at all.
Right. Well, Michael, it's almost never good to be a whistleblower.
Right.
I guess there's some sides are better than others, right?
Yeah.
And kind of the irony is, I was talking about, this year in whistleblowing, and it's kind of interesting because we had the first, during, I guess 2 years ago, we were finally able to get through the Whistleblower Protection and Enhancement Act, and that was actually signed into law by President Obama. And, I just chuckled at the irony because he signs in the latest whistleblower protection law, but the Obama administration has prosecuted more whistleblowers and journalists than any administration. So it's kind of the best of times, worst of times kind of situation. But I think that what we're very upset about now is that, the treatment that whistleblowers get by this administration, where there might be a protection for retaliation if they fired you, they can prosecute you. They're prosecuting people for stuff that they couldn't retaliate against. So we literally have whistleblowers are becoming America's political prisoners because people are going to jail for free speech. So, that, again, that's another one of the themes and the stuff that we're fighting, the decriminalization of whistleblowers. But in terms of the treason example, let's take a minute and talk about Edward Snowden.
Okay.
Because, some people say he's a whistleblower, some people say he was a hero, some people say, he committed treason. I think the Snowden situation creates it's a mixed bag, and possibly you can be both. And I say that because what Edward Snowden did was whistleblowing, and it was a public service in the sense that prior to the Snowden disclosures, no one was able to go to court and challenge the surveillance laws and kind of the new security state that we're living under, in terms of the Patriot Act. The reason being is, you call up, the ACLU or somebody, and they try to go to court. The judges were throwing out the cases because you couldn't establish standing. So it's not that we never got a chance to evaluate what was actually going on in the FISA courts and what was going on, under the Patriot Act, because no one could establish the standing to even take the case beyond the motion to dismiss. So by Snowden making those disclosures, at least we've had a chance to have a dialogue and have a conversation about it and see what's going on. Where it can be, and let's also think about, you remember when Chelsea Manning and Julian Assange, of course, Chelsea Manning was the private that disclosed a lot of military information. I'll turn it over to Julian Assange, who I guess is probably best described as a hacktivist who created the WikiLeaks webpage. And then they posted all the videos of the drone strikes and all the stuff that was going wrong in the Iraq War. I think it was Desert Storm or Desert Shield. But anyway, Julian Assange, I had problems with in the sense that he took basically a classified database and put it online. There was no, vetting the information. There was no, ferreting out, possible information that could identify covert operatives. Julian Assange believes in total truth. Edward Snowden really didn't do that. What he did was he went to a respectable journalist, news organization, I think that was The Guardian, and he gave limited disclosures and it was curated by, responsible journalists. So from that perspective, at least he tried to be more responsible with the information versus Manning and Assange. And so it's a more difficult case to me. I can kind of see it both ways. But I do think that he did provide a service to America by allowing us to discuss the police powers of our own government. And, you know, it may be up to you or your listeners to see, did he truly cross the line in terms of giving up information that is being very useful for enemies of the state.
Well, see, I've told my listeners for a while now that Snowden actually, no matter what you think of him, he did kind of people like me a favor, too, with the show that I do, because for a long time I've been telling people that their emails are being traced and that their phone calls are being listened to, and they said, oh, you're crazy. And, you know, finally it took a guy like Snowden to come out, and now I guess I'm not so crazy anymore.
Right. No, exactly. Well, Michael, I used to tell people when they're talking about does the government read your emails? Google reads your emails. You can imagine what NASA is doing, you know.
Oh, that's right. I mean, I love it when people say, I don't use Facebook because I don't want them tracking me. It's if you get on the internet, period, they know where you are, who you are, and what you're doing.
No, you know, your phone is snitching on you.
Oh,
It
yeah.
tells you where you're going, and it can listen to all the stuff that you do. I mean, between the GPS stuff, man, it's incredible, the vast amounts of information and data. And just think about what would have happened had this technology been available at the, you know, during the American Revolution, where you could track all of Paul Revere's friends. You know, and make a grid of that. You know, Britain would have wiped out the entire, you know, all the founding fathers. I mean, it's really incredible what the technology has allowed people. I guess it's good and bad.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, if they had this technology, and you know, I think it's a double-edged sword. You know, there's people who think, well, the government uses it to track us. Well, we could kind of use it to track what they're doing too, in a sense. So it is kind of a double-edged sword. Although I will say, you know, whatever we have at our fingertips, they're probably many years advanced than what we have right now. Right.
Absolutely. Well, and they make all the rules, though.
They do.
I mean, yeah. So I mean, you know, it used to be in terms of FOIA, that, you know, you could have any information unless the government had a good reason not to give it to you. You know, remember when we went under the Bush administration, they flipped it to unless we had a good reason to get the information, everything stayed secret.
Right.
So, you know, it's always a tug of war between transparency with the government, and I mean, because what happens is it allows you to amass more and more power.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you have a book, is it called Race, Power, and Politics, The Inside Story of Acorn?
That is correct. And Michael, what that book is about is, again, when I was on the national board, after my whistleblowing experience and I got kicked out of government, I started working for a small boutique hotel development company in Atlanta, Georgia. And we had acquired a historic hotel that was called the Winecoff Hotel. And actually, it was famous. It was internationally famous because there was a tragic fire where 119, 120 people lost their lives. But because of the fire, it changed the building codes to require sprinkler systems. Long and short of it is, it was in a distressed area. It happened to be within one of the empowerment zones, which was the government program that I just come from. And this guy's name was Courtney Dillard, had come up with an innovative way to finance that project and get it redeveloped. The long and short of what happened was we became the early victim of the mortgage fraud epidemic, back in the time when, we weren't even calling it mortgage fraud. We were calling it a loan-to-own scheme. But essentially it was an unprosecuted case of commercial mortgage fraud that was being orchestrated by a unlicensed Wall Street investment company called Interbank. So long and short of it is I got involved in some of a financial situation that went awry, and I wound up going to Acorn to help me bring attention to it and to try to get some direct action and relief. Acorn wasn't the only organization I went to. Went to the NAACP. They were of no use. Went to the SCLC, Southern Christian Leadership Conference. They helped for a moment, but ultimately they got frightened off when some of the political powers in Atlanta kind of leaned on them. And Acorn was the only organization that was, essentially completely fearless. And so I was the guy that brought the issue of mortgage fraud to Acorn, because they had already been doing some other actions on predatory lending and other types of financial frauds, predatory lending and high-interest payday loans. But once we got into the realm of mortgage fraud and foreclosure fraud, everything was at an entirely different level. And so the book chronicles kind of how I got involved with Acorn, and it talks about why people do it, because, that's another question that a lot of people have is, why even be involved in an organization like that? Who wants to do direct action? So it's a critique of Acorn, not from the right, but actually from the left, from people who actually believed in Acorn and wanted to see it grow. But once we got in, we kind of became disillusioned when we learned that, Acorn was actually exploiting a lot of the people that it was supposed to help. And so, from that experience, I met Marcel Reed, and once there was the embezzlement, there was a group that became known as the Acorn 8 that set about trying to set things right with Acorn. And this book is the story of that struggle.
I see. Well, and where can people get their hands on this book?
The book is available, really anywhere where books are sold. So you can get it on Amazon or at your local bookstore. You can go to the website, www.acorn8.com, and the book is available there. Again, it's www.acorn8.com. And then also, Michael, the summit, it's also available on the Whistleblower Summit site, where we actually have collected a lot of whistleblower books, and people can purchase it there as well. And that website is www.whistleblowersummit.com.
All right. And before I let you go tonight, let me ask you, what are your thoughts on the state of the country, the world? I mean, what do you see? You see things getting a lot worse before they get better?
Wow. That's a great question. Yeah. In one sense, as we're talking about the prevalence of technology, it's the best of times and it's the worst of times. I think technology and globalization is causing a lot of downward pressure for, the American middle class and, lower class, and, there's a lot of wage suppression, and, in that sense it's very bad. I try to be optimistic because on the flip side, technology is such a great tool, then it can empower people and we can communicate in ways we've never been able to do before. We can connect with places where we never had the ability to. We have virtual universities. You can learn anything on YouTube. So in that sense, there's the great ability, the knowledge and information can be a great equalizer. But I'm very fearful for what's going on with our government and really the concentration of political power, really in the hands of the rich and the wealthy. Again, nothing against wealthy. I'm definitely, pro-capitalism. But I think somehow or another, with Citizens United, where money becomes speech, then real people, for some reason, we're not able to speak anymore, So if all that matters is the only people that have free speech are billionaires, what does that leave you and I?
Yeah, exactly. What does it leave us? And it does. And that's the way it's been too. It's for a long time the information has been controlled, and I think now more than ever the truth is getting out about a whole lot of stuff that and how we've been shafted, we the American people, and I hope for the best. That's why I do what I do, because I have hope. Some people don't.
Well,
they say it's over.
I'll add that also, Michael, it's, again, as we're talking about, your cell phone snitching on you, but with the video, now everywhere is a camera, I think there's a lot more transparency in our world to a certain extent, or maybe too much. We can run into information overload. But I think there are a lot of systems that have been closed and secretive for so long that, now it's kind of a culture shock. Now, when people would argue about how police treat people, whether they're in, Beverly Hills or in Watts, the difference in treatment, we're now able to see it. And so I think that, the video camera is going to have a tremendous impact on law enforcement, potentially could have a tremendous impact on the court system. I mean, people are still arguing about whether we're going to get cameras in courts. It's very interesting the role that technology is going to play in terms of hopefully to right some of the imbalances that have kind of been baked into our institutions and the system. And I hope and pray that it will happen sometime very soon.
I'm with you on that, my friend. I am. Well, listen, if there's anything else that you'd like to get out, by all means, I want to give you the floor to go ahead and do that. And I thank you so much for being here tonight. And no rush. I mean, anything that you want to throw out there, by all means, go right ahead.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, oh, wow. Hey, man, we still got half a shot of this. No.
Yeah. We actually got, we had a call, and he just dropped off. But I was going to say we could have took a call. But
open it up. I'm sure. Let's do that, make it more interactive. Because the thing is, man, really, I can kind of ramble on this stuff all night, which I don't like to do. But I do want to say this, that we are getting ready. We're starting to plan for the next Whistleblower Summit, which will be the week of July 30th, 2016 in Washington, D.C. I think this year the 30th falls on a Saturday, so the conference dates will be the 27th, 28th, and 29th. Again, you can keep up with the information at whistleblowersummit.com. There are other some events going. We're going to be in Little Rock, Arkansas in April, where we're kind of going to do a mini summit at the Clinton School of Public Service. So we're going to take whistleblowers to the Clinton Presidential Center. So we're very happy and very pleased with that. So we're really in a campaign to get the word out and to tell people how important whistleblowers are to our First Amendment protections, and then also things that people can do to help support us. For instance, we need everybody to support National Whistleblower Appreciation Day, which once again is July 30th, so that we can give whistleblowers the proper recognition and to place whistleblowing in its proper historical context.
Okay, fantastic. And we do have our callers back. 909 area code. You are on Late Night in the Midlands. First name, where you're calling from, please.
Michael and Sugarloaf, California.
Well, welcome aboard.
Yeah, right on. Hey, man, I appreciate your courage.
Thank you, Michael, and Michael. Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's like a trifecta. It's amazing. And here's my deal, and I just went back to the Snowden thing. I mean, I'm not unfamiliar. I'm a programmer. I've been on the internet before it was the internet, and I know about data and all that stuff. Here's my question for you on this. Now, okay, the sheer amount of data coming through, who's sifting it? I mean, how can you sift that much data? And I'm not denying that Google's taking all your crap and the government's taking it all. So who's sifting it?
Well,
you know what I mean?
Programmer, I guess you can answer that question more better than anybody on the phone, right? I mean, I assume there are algorithms, and the more I learn about the technology, and I watch, persons of interest, and you're dealing with
right.
machines.
Right.
I'm like, that may not be as far-fetched as I thought it was when I first started.
I don't think it is.
Yeah.
I'm not denying that they're not collecting massive amounts of data, but coming from a technological standpoint, I don't think it's possible to sift it. Well, obviously it's not. I equate it to walking through the TSA lines in an airport. Okay, now you could stop everyone and strip search them, cavity, whatever you want to do, and you might find more stuff. But if you're just pushing them through and you're just looking for cursory stuff, then it's not working.
Right. Well, no, Michael, I agree with you. I actually think that we're less safe by collecting all the data. You become blinded to what's pertinent. What is the relevant data? So you're actually, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack, and you keep adding more hay.
Correct. That's what I think. And so to me, it's not as much of a threat. I don't like it. But it's not as much of a threat as I think maybe it's perceived to be. Okay, maybe for somebody who's, and I'm not saying people haven't gotten pinched on that kind of data, but I'm just saying look, okay, you're talking about your meth lab on some chat room, whatever. Well, there's a million people saying the same thing, and they don't have enough manpower, if you will, to bust all those million people.
Right. Well, the one thing that I don't like when people talk about, and especially now the administration talks about, no one is listening to your telephone calls. I'm not worried about the person listening. It's the software that's doing the analytics on the voice patterns and all of that type of stuff. So, I don't necessarily think that there's a GS12 analyst listening, but even the machines themselves are doing it.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree, and I'm not down with people listening to my stuff either. I agree. I totally agree there. But I just think that the technology is not in place enough for them, which is a good thing for us. Right. That you can grab it. I mean, there's a pipe coming on the East Coast that takes all the data in. It poops out on the West Coast, and they grab every bit. Everybody knows that, or not everybody, but most people know that, and. But I don't see the reality of them being able to actually look through it all. I just don't see it working.
Yeah, well, and another point is then they start to report on how many terrorist plots they actually say, prior to. I'm like, I kind of call BS on a lot of that. I mean, I do think that in terms of law enforcement, after the terrorist attack occurs, maybe it helps with them in trying to identify where the perpetrators were. But in terms of all this stuff, I agree with you. There's too much information, and it becomes impossible to make it useful.
Well,
it does. I don't think it's useful either. I don't like it, and I don't think it's useful.
I think I was going to say, I think what they got is they probably have some artificial intelligence that's siphoning through it all and pretty much, red flagging what that thinks, keywords or what have you that come up. And then, this artificial intelligence probably indicates what they should look into deeper is what I'm guessing. That's got to be how they're doing it.
Well, Michael, they were doing keywords, 30 years ago?
Well,
I mean, just imagine what it is now.
Yeah.
No, I did that, but a human has to actually, evaluate the knowledge at some point. True. Yeah, you can get a list or a printout or a report, but then that's a lot of that's a lot of things. I say bomb, that's the bomb. Okay, well, cool. Bomb might pop up on the list, but that doesn't mean it. So somebody has to filter that. I don't know. It just doesn't. It's not very effective, obviously.
Hey, somebody or something.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Anyway, so sorry, I didn't mean to run the show over, Mike.
Oh no, it's quite all right.
So anyway, but yeah, hey, again, keep up the courage. You do, I know it must be hard. It has to be hard, and I appreciate your, tenacity or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
All right.
All right. Thank you so much for the call. I appreciate it. He brings up a great point. Who's going through all this? And what I worry about is, I just read an article last night, as a matter of fact, that they had arrested some man because they have some software at the police station that was able to pretty much rate the threat of this guy. It goes through everything, his social media, you name it, and it puts it all together, and then it makes a determination whether they should come guns drawn or not. And
right, there you go.
Yeah.
I thought I read that too. It had Tom Cruise in it, and it was the Minority Report, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's you see this stuff in movies, and before, I think it's almost their way of saying, "Hey, guess what we got?"
That was precog.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I thank you for your bravery and for doing all that you do. And I know it can't be easy. Once you go against the establishment, it's never easy for oneself. So I thank you. And again, anything you want to get out, by all means, go right ahead. And you're welcome back anytime. Shoot me an email, any updates or events you got coming up. I'd be glad to bring you back on.
Okay, appreciate that, Michael. And what we'll do is we'll start to, as we get closer to the summit, what I may do is start sending you some other whistleblowers to interview and be on the show, so we can use that to help ramp into the the Whistleblower Summit this year and for other things as well.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. And so let's talk. Well, it's interesting that we started talking about the movies and films, because that's the other thing that, when we have this summit, we start to do the policy work and the advocacy, but we also try to build a sense of community. So one of the things that we do is we have movie night. And so, of course, all the whistleblowers, we all get together, and then we'll go watch, whatever the latest whistleblower movie is, All the President's Men, Aaron Brockovich, it becomes a very, and also documentaries. So there was a great one about, who was it, Gary Webb, Kill the Messenger. And so that was the story of the journalist who had broke the Contra smuggling, story and all the drugs that were getting run through South Central Los Angeles. And spoiler alert, by the end of the movie, the journalist commits suicide by shooting himself twice in the head. I'll let you think about that. On the anniversary that the story came out. So, but it's one of those things where we also recognize journalists, we recognize investigative reporters and other filmmakers at the summit with what we call the Pillar Award. And so we've been doing this year will be the 5th anniversary, and so it's great to come out and meet filmmakers and have movie night with whistleblowers. We also encourage whistleblowers to write books, and that's one of the other things that I preach. Ultimately, by the time you fight the federal government going through the administrative layers, you get into federal courts and may wind up having to do appeals. The chances of winning a whistleblower case are really pretty slim. You may have a better chance. It's less than 2%, so you may wind up having a better chance with Powerball. But what I've noticed is that all the whistleblowers I've met over the years, they have these fantastic stories. The strength, the courage to persevere, the tenacity, how they lost their, wife, how they lost their family. It's these tremendous stories. And what I've been doing is encouraging whistleblowers to write about it and publish books and, make films and produce theater plays, so to utilize the power of story. So actually, I wound up, my book is, I guess technically, some would say it's self-published, but I created a platform to publish whistleblower stories. My book happens to be the first one out, and we're working on some other whistleblower projects. So the name of the company is American Banner Books. But, it's these types of things where we build community, make lawyer referrals, and also we're working on of creating a network of clinicians so that people that are having some going through mental problems and that could use a mentor or a therapist, that we can make those types of connections. So we're creating a sense of community and giving back and trying to help people. The courageous whistleblowers that are going through this traumatic experience, and then also to raise the consciousness of the people that benefit, society, that benefit from the work that whistleblowers do.
Absolutely. And the work that you're doing is great. We need something like this because, there's more and more people are afraid to speak up because what they're seeing happen with whistleblowers. I mean, even the mainstream doesn't talk about some of these people who, they wind up disappearing in some cases. It happens. So, it's a very serious topic. No doubt about it. Well, Well, listen, I thank you very much, and please keep in touch, and I'd love to have more whistleblowers on, and even have you back. I would appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a great night, my friend.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
You too. All right. Bye-bye. All right, everybody. There he goes. And, you had a chance. You could have called in and talked with him. I seen his story, and I thought, well, I'd have him on briefly. We've got it's a 2-guest night, and then, of course, we got the break coming up. So, it kind of cuts things short. He couldn't do a full show tonight, so that's why we had cut it short. So we've got Tom Freed, who is coming up next, and I've actually got to be sure I've got his contact. But I have Ira on the line with me right now for a couple minutes anyways, and I know he's under the weather tonight. But Ira, we were going to cut into the Obama's little speech there, but we didn't get to it. I thought it would last longer than that.
Yeah, he just finished it up about maybe 3 or 4 minutes ago at this point.
Yeah, he did. So, any significance? Anything special?
Yeah, there was a couple of things that happened that I ran across with it that I thought were relevant to bring up, I guess. One of the things that he said is, and I quote here from him in the speech, I also want to speak tonight directly to Muslims throughout the world. We respect your faith. It's practiced freely by many millions of Americans and by millions more in countries that America counts as friends. Its teachings are good and peaceful, and those who commit evil in the name of Allah blaspheme the name of Allah. The terrorists are traitors in their own faith, trying, in effect, to hijack Islam itself. The enemy of America is not our many Muslim friends. It's not our many Arab friends. Our enemy is a radical network of terrorists and every government that supports them.
Mm-hmm. Well, that would be including the United States, I suppose. Cause,
pretty much, yeah.
Well, because it should, because the United States supports them.
Right, exactly. We've sent how many weapons over to ISIS terrorists? I mean, the last round was 50 tons worth, somewhere around in there.
No, yeah, well, and not to mention everything we left there for them, Jeeps, SUVs, tanks, ammunition, who knows what else, probably women too.
I wouldn't be surprised by that one, most definitely. Another thing that I thought was really interesting, this was not from his speech, but Michelle Obama was sitting next to an empty seat. And the reason why the First Lady was sitting in the empty seat is to honor the victims of gun violence during Barack's speech.
Somebody should have grabbed her by the hair and shoved her face in that seat.
Yes.
And that's just so. Yes. Of course, he'll get up and kick your butt, so you got to be careful when you're messing with Michael. But
yeah, exactly. She's pretty tough.
What is he, like 6'8"?
Something like that. Something like that. The White House also put out a little blurb right before the speech ended up occurring, and they were talking about some of the talking points that he would get to. And so in the time period that I listened to it for about about 15 minutes or so there. In that time period, I heard him refer to himself at least 24 times, minimum, at least 24 times. The talking points that they were trying to say is his role in the leadership since he's been president. So, such as Iran can no longer obtain a nuclear weapon, which we know is bull.
Well, yeah, of course. Even North Korea, he's even out there going, "Oh, how you like that, Mr. Obama? Ha ha ha!"
Exactly. 160,000 U.S. combat troops are home from war. Well, that may be. How many more got sent back out?
Well, yeah, and don't forget, when they brought the troops home, they just changed the names for a lot of them and called them security forces.
Well, exactly, correct. And not only that, but I mean, yes, some were removed from Iraq, but they were just moved over to Afghanistan. they weren't brought home. They were just moved to a different theater over there.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, look, this guy has walked the red carpet, and he has taken credit for so much, but he's not taking credit for what he's really done, and that's damage.
Oh, absolutely. He's done more to damage the American way of life than any president before him, I think, combined, honestly.
Oh, yeah, I can't stand him. And I want to know, I get emails and stuff from even people who've been who are guests on this show and colleagues, and they're so afraid that Trump is like this. One's calling him the artificial intelligence president, which I don't know, but that guy takes elevators to Mars. Then there's another one who then these guys I like too, but they get a little out there with some of this stuff. Saying Trump, they're so afraid of Trump, and I'm thinking, where were these emails all this time during Obama's administration? I didn't. The most I got was, well, Obama was from Mars or something. I mean, but I didn't. These people weren't. They weren't worried about what Obama's done. I kind of wonder whose side some of these people are on sometimes. And I say, oh well, these people like what Trump says, and that's why they're following. Well, that's why you like people to start is what they say, and then you follow. Hopefully, they follow through with what they're supposed to do. And Obama did.
You and me, we both agree that Trump is the best runner that we've got right now. But if he was to screw up, you and I would be the first ones on the front line saying, "Hell no."
Absolutely. But what I'm finding is that most of the people who are talking about him are talking badly because they don't like the fact that he wants to send illegal immigrants home. They want to do it because he won't bow down and say, yeah, we should take on refugees, which aren't refugees at all. So, exactly. So they're not liking him for the wrong reasons. Then they're going and they're picking at things like, oh, his sister knew a guy who knew a guy that did this. Okay, so what did he do? Tell me about what Trump's done. I mean, I've heard about the Clinton, he gave him money and this and that. Look, when you're in business, you do those things. And
yeah.
So, for me, right now, I like where he's going. Let's see what he does, okay? Because actions speak louder than words. But we got to start. But I don't know. I mean, what do they want me to do? It's like you're not supposed to poll for anything. What are you supposed to do? I mean, some of these people, I wonder, what do they do? Do they have any hopes, any dreams, any thoughts? Outside of the whole world.
Wonder that. Yeah. I mean, it's like they just get into that point of despair and despondency that they can't do anything. It's like, well, there's just so much that's crushing on top of us and everything's coming to kill us. We're just going to sit here and die. Well, that's not the point of life.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, are these people, they're sitting there waiting and saying, well, the whole world's going to end because the prophecies say so, and I'm just going to sit here and wait for Jesus now. It's like, no, you've got other options.
Right. Exactly. Like for instance, one of the big things in almost every religion that's out there, for instance, that has these, end time kind of predictions, if you want to go there, they all say, it can be staved off. How do you stave it off? You stave it off by spreading the word. You stave it off by being one. You be united. You give love. That's the main object. And whether or not you are successful and stave off the end or not doesn't matter. It's still a life that's worth living. That's the point. You live a life that's worth living. And if you find yourself in a life that's not worth living, change it.
Well, right. I mean, and it just gets me that I get emails and messages from people who have been in, say, the truth movement, if that's what you want to call it. But is there a solution? Their only solution is to sit back and wait for an invisible man. And I'm sorry that I got to put it like that, but I'm just being honest. I mean, it's like there's never no hope with these people. It's like, no, if the world's going to end, there's nothing you could do about it. And well, if that's the case, I mean, why bother doing it? Why did I even have you on my show? I mean, you know.
And it contributes to the negativity that we have in the world. I mean, the more people that get into that state of despondency, the more negative the world becomes, and it just leads us right back into that whole circle that we're in. You know, we're circling the drain at this point in time. We need to stop the drain from going.
And, you know, and then people say, oh, there's no point in voting. The voting's fixed. Okay. But, you know, that doesn't mean it has to be fixed. Don't mean if we stood up and we made sure. I mean, you know, there's ways we could go about it. You just need people to organize. There's ways we could fix these things and make them righteous. But I've always looked at it this way, and call me crazy, but I've always thought if everybody just decided they're not going, nobody goes to vote, right? And okay, they say, well, if you do, you're playing into the system. But if nobody does it, right? Don't you think these arrogant SOBs the very next day would say, well, the American people don't want to vote, so there'll be no voting no more. We'll just we'll tell you who will be the president, which you could argue they do that now.
Yeah, they already do that through the Electoral College.
Well,
that
right.
alone is enough to prove that we, the people, don't have a word in what happens with the presidency.
Well, right, but by laying down and just giving it up, right, you're more or less, you've now given them the final okay, like, okay, we're okay with that. I'm not okay with that.
Yep.
Yeah. So I don't know. I look at things a little different, and, you know, people want me to go way out on the conspiracy ledge, and I know there's some serious shit going on out there. I do. But I have to have some hope. And it's not that I hope that Donald Trump comes in and saves the world. No, I'm not looking at it that way. I'm hoping that he says the right things to wake a few more people up. I mean, that's all. And you know, it's you and I who are going to save the world, not one man. Not two men, not some pie-faced Chucky-looking woman, nothing like that.
It's every single one of us.
Yeah, so I don't know. I look at this with common sense in a logical way, you know, and that's what I try to do. And I'll tell you, sometimes people get angry that I look at things that way. They think I should say, folks, don't vote, don't have hope in this, no hope in nothing. I mean, I don't know what they want to do, go out in the street and flip cars? I don't even think they want to do that. They don't want to do anything. They just want to sit home and watch the History Channel, and that's it. I don't know.
Wait for the things to come down on top of their heads. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of the opposite Chicken Little thing, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it is. It absolutely is. But, you know, that's like anybody. You know, I when Obama was first running, I pleaded with people, don't you dare help get this guy in office. Well, I told people what he was going to do, and he did exactly what I said he would do. And, you know, now there's Trump, right? And 9 out of 10, he's getting in there unless they kill him or something. So, you know, I say let's see what happens. I'm hoping that he's got a big enough mouth and he means what he says. And, you know, he's obviously stirring some things up. I mean, there's some groups out there that aren't too happy with him. And so
stirring the pot is what needs to be done. There's so much complacency that's been happening that there needs to be some of that sediment tossed up from the bottom, and we need to take a look at these hard things. I mean, that's the point. I think that is the reason why I've been at least enjoying listening to him, is because you know, for me, I believe in the whole the shadows thing. If you don't face the shadows, if you don't face the things that are in the darkness that are coming out to bite you in the butt, it's going to bite you in the butt. You got to turn around and face that thing and talk it down. You got to get rid of that fear. And the only way to do that is to turn around and face it. So these things that for instance, he's talking about are the things that are down there in that bottom sedimentary kind of areas of the river that we're currently trying to cross. And he's saying, look, right down there, there's monsters. You got to take a look. If you don't look, you're going to get bit.
And, you know, in the past, there's been presidents who have got in that weren't supposed to get in. Kennedy being one of them. Look what happened to him. And as much as people, you know, will still have things to say about Reagan, I liked him. You know, okay, he may not have done everything the way maybe he should have or the way people think he should have, but, you know, nevertheless, I like the toughness. I like the not being – I've always been one of those people. I don't like being pushed around.
I like how he was a better president than Barack Obama ever could dream to be, and the guy was senile.
Yeah, well,
I mean, that tells you something, right?
It does. It does tell you something. And, and he was shot at, too. I think they made him change his mind about how he was doing things. People bring up the Iran-Contra stuff, and you take a couple bullets to the ass, and, you may just change the way you think about things. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll change your mindset pretty quickly.
Well, yeah. And so, maybe he gets in, I don't know, if I have $10 billion, and I understand that these elites have more than that, but if I've got $10 billion, I'm guessing I could probably make sure that there's some people on the inside who make sure things go right. I'm guessing. I'm hoping. I don't know. That's my thoughts. But, again, actions speak louder than words. Let's see what he does. I just hate that people are doing everything they can to crucify this guy, but they've pretty much kept their mouth shut during Obama's run because, they don't want to sound prejudiced. It's like, you people are pathetic.
Yeah, and the same people that complain about Trump, for instance, they support Hillary Clinton, and it's like, whoa. And
I'm serious. And I don't mind legitimate doubts. Fine, I don't care. We got hosts on this network who aren't, they don't trust them, and you shouldn't. I'm not saying trust him. I'm not saying I completely trust him. I'm saying I like where he's going. That's all. And so you're welcome to your opinions, but when people start trashing them like crazy, I start asking them, can you back that up? I see some evidence of that? And they get offended when I ask them, like I'm supposed to take their word for it because, hey, I've been on your show. I've told you about, planets with aliens coming that it's going to, so you should believe everything I say. It's like, no, well, I can't. I need to see evidence because otherwise it's defamation and slander.
That's exactly how I feel about it too. Yep.
So, hey, it is what it is. I'll stop rambling on, though. I've got Thomas Fried coming up. I thank you for hanging in the wings there. We were going to actually bring Obama on. We were going to actually criticize it live, but we didn't get around to it, which is okay.
Yeah.
So, 8 years, what, Obama, I think his sound clips only a few times have made it on my show in 8 years, so.
And most of that was critical ones.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, listen, I better take my break, Ira. I thank you so much for popping on here. I know you're not feeling good.
Yep, this cold is definitely kicking my butt. I'm going to go rest. Everybody out there, have a great night.
All right. You too, my friend. Thank you.
You bet.
All right. Good night, Ira. And we're going to have Thomas Fried coming up next, folks. Lines will be open. We would love to hear from you. Pretty much going down that same road, not just the whistleblowers aspect. I'm going to get Thomas's opinion on that. But we're also going to head into some other areas, probably touch on the IRS again because this guy knows how to beat them. He's been on the show before. I told him I'd have him back soon, and so I'm doing that. We'll be back, folks. This is Late Night in the Midlands on the LNM Radio Network.
You got a lot tied up inside. And a boy that just won't fight. Baby, it's a grind. And this your bitter life, where nothing just won't do. The girl pleads, the woman needs a wedding ring.
Hi, I'm Joshua Vera, and I wanted to inform you that Late Night in the Midlands is offering limited on-air advertisement. With 30 and 60-second spots available, or inquire about placing your banner ad on the LNM website, or go ahead and package a deal, but either way, get the attention you deserve and join the LNM family. Contact us at mv@latenightinthemidlands.com. Again, that email is mv@latenightinthemidlands.com.
Share our content and use the hashtag LNM Radio for your chance to win a free subscription. Those who use it at least 10 times a month will find themselves entered into a drawing every month to win a free 2-month subscription from Late Night in the Midlands. So spread our news, spread our website, and use hashtag LNM Radio.
L&M fans and late-nighters around the world, have you captured something on that photo or video of yours? Send in your photos and videos of ghosts, orbs, UFOs, Planet X, or just about anything content related by submitting them to the Late Night in the Midlands Facebook group or fan page, or you can submit them on Twitter using hashtag LNM Radio. And if you would rather stay anonymous, then email them to us at mv@latenightinthemidlands.com. We will share them at our new fan page on the LNM website and may even ask you to come on air a few minutes and tell us about your photo or video. Late Night in the Midlands. We're building a bridge to the truth and beyond.
Become a late nighter without the late nights. And subscribe now to help Late Night in the Midlands bring you the best guests with the best information.
Hello, this is Dick Farrell, here to tell you about OxySilver. Legally available only through CureShop.com and HealthyWorldStore.com. Don't be fooled buying silver products from copycats and criminals. So help save lives, putting drug lords and criminals out of business, and keep the LNM network broadcasting. Register for our free cooperative at HealthWorldAffiliates.com/4948. That's HealthyWorldAffiliates.com/4948. And buy OxySilver and other great products in package specials at great discounts from theCureShop.com. Buy OxySilver, GI Flora Pro, Green Harvest, Zeolove, and Love Minerals at great discounts at CureShop.com. That's CureShop.com with 2 P's. CureShoppe.com. Or call toll-free at 1-888-621-7611. That's 1-888-621-7611. Do it now.
Are you a late nighter? Well, if not, here is one more reason to join the family. We have added the Late Nighters Forum to latenightinthemidlands.com, and it is open for discussion of our many topics and guests. Now you have a place where you can share your thoughts and ideas with the entire Late Nighter community. So become a Late Nighter by subscribing on our website, latenightinthemidlands.com, and start leaving your mark on the Late Nighter community now.
The LNM Radio Network offers a moderated chat room at www.latenightinthemidlands.com. Just click the chat and listen page from the drop-down menu at the top of any page on the website, or click the Listen Live button at the top of the homepage at www.latenightinthemidlands.com.
Is there proof of God's existence in our government's records? Author Jose Collazo brings his years of research into this stunning question to light with his new book. Discover how new and experimental technologies may change our world forever and uncover monumental proof and answers to mankind's greatest questions in God Does Exist, No More Nuclear Testing, and more.
You could find Jose Collazo's book, America's New Slavery, on Amazon.com.
Become a late nighter without the late nights. And subscribe now to help Late Night in the Midlands bring you the best guests with the best information.
Attention LNM Radio Network listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the LNM Radio Network by calling 605-562-4203? No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 605-562-4203 to listen to the LNM Radio Network on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Imagine, if you will, a man, a media, speaking the truth. Imagine a show that covers UFOs, E.T. races, the paranormal, and the not-so-normal. A media that speaks the truth no matter who or what it leads to. Imagine, if you will, a media that covers everything. Folks, you just entered the LNM zone. LNM, keeping it real when others don't.
On the east coast of the United States, from the capital city, Columbia, South Carolina, you're listening to Late Night in the Midlands with your host, Michael Vera. To talk to Michael Vera, dial 803-392-4566 or around the world on Skype. Just use Skype ID LNM Radio.
All right, folks, we are back, and this absolutely is the night shift. We do, from 9 to midnight Eastern Time, Monday through Friday. And in some areas, you could get us right on your radio. And, there's many ways to listen, We've now got a call-in number that you could call and listen. So as many of you is out there, and if you want to listen on your phone, you could do that. Of course, there's phone apps as well. We're on iTunes, TuneIn. We're we're all over the place. High Point Radio brings us in on New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, and they do it on 1620 AM. We're on 87.5 FM. In Wareham, Massachusetts. And, of course, you can hear us multiple places here on the Internet. And, of course, our home, the home of Late Night in the Midlands, is the LNM Radio Network, a network that has just been growing and growing. And I've been getting such great feedback from all of you out there about the LNM Radio Network and how many of you who are listening over there on The Darkest Matter have told me that, that we're your new home. You listen to us now because, I got to say, and for me, it's not so much a competition or anything, but I have to say, we've got a lot of great shows on this network. We do, and they're real people covering real issues, and that's what's important. And my guest tonight is a real person who covers real issues. His name is Thomas Freed. He has been on this show before. He has a book out there, as a matter of fact, that demonstrates that our tax laws actually say something entirely different from what the people of America have been taught for years by their government to believe. We'll get into some of that. His website, one of them is irszoom.com. He is linked up on the homepage at latenightinthemidlands.com under the picture slider. So you could go check him out there. Just click on the picture. His name's there, Thomas Freed. And before I bring him on with us, folks, get over to the website, latenightinthemidlands.com. That is, go on over, become a member, be informed, inform others. It's that simple. Become a late nighter. That helps us stay on the air. Somebody had wrote me and was a little confused, and so let me explain it, how things work. We are loving the subscriptions, don't get me wrong, but we're not nowhere near where it can support everything we do yet. And when it is, we'll be very thankful and grateful for it all. But it's not there yet. So at the time being, donations is what's really keeping us going for the most part. And at some point, I'm not going to tell you that people are shooting at me and they try to get publicity or anything like that. But at some point, our subscriptions will pick up enough where it will support everything we do on this network. And so that's the deal. Subscriptions and donations, both of those help us do what we do. And now I'm going to stop rambling here and bring my guest who is waiting in the wings here. Thomas Freed, I welcome you back to Late Night in the Midlands. How are you? It's 2016. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, and thank you very much for having me on. I enjoy speaking with you when I get the chance. It's always fun.
Well, thank you. My first guest, Thomas, we had spoke about the Obama administration. Speaking of which, the devil was just on TV talking. But the Obama administration and their prosecution of more whistleblowers, my guest says, and journalists than any other administrations combined. Care to elaborate on that just a little bit?
Yeah, well, it's not surprising. It's the old Obama song and dance. You promise them one thing and do something entirely different. I don't think the man's been able to talk straight since day one. Most transparent administration in history has turned into the most adversarial and prosecutorial there is. But what else could you expect from a Chicago political organization? Remember, this guy's right out of Chicago. It's pure Chicago politics all the way, and that's the way they operate. They lie, cheat, steal, and kill to go after the enemy with whatever they can dream up to attack them with. And, of course, inside an administration, when you're telling on them what they're doing, that's the enemy. So Chicago politics says you go after the enemy and attack them. They're not upholding them anything. They're not pursuing any of the things that are quite clear, starting with, things like Benghazi and Hillary Clinton violating all the classified records materials that there are. This is simply Chicago politics. Ignore your own sins, attack the enemy, and lie and repeat, attack, lie, and repeat. The more times you say it, pretty soon people start to believe it. In Chicago, it's pretty clear they're all brainwashed. Yeah. They're all getting murdered by the hundreds, and they think the solution is to not defend themselves. Which brings us to Obama's ISIS policy, which is, ISIS attacks the individuals have, not very many attacks have successfully been here because they've lost communication grounds, but the few lone wolf attacks that they've been, that have happened, and Obama's response is to try and disarm the American people so that they won't be able to defend themselves from future attacks if they're successful in being launched. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. America is being taken to war by religious fanatics, and Obama's response to having war waged on the nation is to disarm the American people, which would make it impossible to call out a militia. And the man is actively working at every step he takes to undermine the Constitution and its placement of authority and ultimate sovereignty with the people, not with the government, which is the representative or the servant of the people. The roles have been reversed. The government now plays the master, and we, the people, the true sovereign, have been reduced to the role of peon or at least tax slave or wage slave. I've heard it defined as. The true role is that of the peon. Services the debts of the master without anything to say about how the debts are created or how much he's saddled with on each year. His fruits, his work, the fruits of his labors and his work are what are taken from him by the master to pay his debts owed to the lender, generally the king or the true ruler behind the throne, the money, controlling it. Yeah. Which goes to Machiavelli. How do you control the throne? The king can turn around and cut your head off at any time. Well, the way you control the throne is its debt. The more debt you possess over the king, the more you can forgive if he ever threatens to cut your head off.
True.
And in the meantime, by keep lending the money, you can control everything that he actually does. And if you can't, and you just lend his neighbor money to amass an army on the king's border. And the king will be right back borrowing money for his own army before you know it. So, this power to create money out of thin air is what has taken over the country, and that's what's leading us down the path to destruction, or, if you will, down the mountain path and off the cliff with all the other lemmings. But, hey, that's just progressive liberal socialism. It inevitably destroys every single society that adopts it. Because, of course, under socialist societies, property is not respected. And if property is not respected, it doesn't produce. And if property doesn't produce, nobody eats. So, there you have it.
And you know what's incredible is that this guy has got another whole year, and you've got to believe that he's going to do everything he can to further his agenda before it's over. And I'm sure he's banking on Hillary picking up the agenda afterwards.
actually, there's a lot of people that think he doesn't want Hillary to be the next behind him, and that he wouldn't be upset at all if the FBI actually came back with a recommendation to indict, and that he'd let it go forward, so that the Democratic ranks would have to quickly and immediately marshal someone like Biden or Warren or, God forbid, Gore, someone with a name. What are they going to do if Hillary gets indicted? Run Bernie Sanders? A socialist? They want to, but they can't, and nobody will say it. Either that they want to or that they can't. So he's there in the primary. He's going to win a couple of early states, but he's going to get blown out when he gets to the major voting. But, Hillary has really, as I said before last time I was on, has already disqualified herself from office. And Marco Rubio is the only candidate pointing this out, but he isn't pointing out law, and I'll be specific. It's Title 18, Section 2071, Classified Documents Handling. And as I said before, the facts are clear in this matter, and based on the record of facts, she's guilty and has disqualified herself from office because the statute does not require you to be convicted under this criminal statute. It just requires that you violate it, and the factual record shows that she's violated. As I've said before, it's an absolute fact that there were classified records on her private email server. That's been confirmed by Judicial Watch in court in Alexandria Federal District Court in Alexandria, Virginia. And it's also been confirmed that the FBI had to retrieve the private server from the company it was leased from. It wasn't given to them by the Hillary campaign. They had turned it back over to the private company. The FBI had to retrieve it from the private company. And the private company turned it over, but that doesn't matter, because the fact that the private company had it and the fact that there were classified records on it convict her. And here's why. We know there were classified records and materials on the server before it was given to the private company. And this statute, Title 18, Section 2071, says that it is illegal for you to delete classified material. That's why she's allowed to delete her personal emails, and then she has to turn the server over to the State Department for them to go through the classified stuff. They'll shred it off, and then they return the server back to the private company, and that's the proper process. So we know there were private emails on there, and either she deleted them before giving it to the private company, the server to the private company, which may have been well-intended because the private company isn't authorized to handle classified materials, but it's illegal and a crime for her to delete them. Only the State Department can delete them. So there were classified materials there, and if she did delete them so that they weren't on the server when they were given to the company, that's a crime. Now, if she didn't delete them and gave them to the company, that's a crime, because they're not authorized to have the classified materials in their possession. So the fact that they were there and the fact that the FBI had to retrieve the server from private hands means that she has to be indicted on the factual record that's already present in the legal forums in the United States courts and on the records of the FBI.
See, and that's how it should be, but then you got to wonder, will the criminals prosecute the criminals? Because we have criminals who, I mean, we've got Congress, we've got all these people that have done absolutely nothing. They've let Obama do whatever he wants. They've let Hillary get away with so much. And then she's got the nerve, after all of this, to say, I'm running to be your president. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, well, okay, I can, based on that record, you can predict what's going to happen, right? The FBI is going to indict and prosecute the private server company for having classified material and not alerting the FBI that records have been distributed.
Yeah, she'll go on to live happily ever after. Wow.
Oh, let's hope not.
Well, yeah, let's hope not.
At least not the happily ever after part, right?
Well, you know, and it's just amazing how and there's people who are rooting for her, which I can't believe. And she brings up the women issues and all this, and I like what Trump's kind of doing. I mean, he's cutting that right off. He because he's been so straightforward and just saying what he wants to say. Nobody's been able to, you know, back him in a corner with any of that nonsense. I kind of like that.
Yeah. Well, you know, he's brash, and personally, I think that he's playing to the fringe elements of the Republican base right now. It has to be consolidated. That's one of the reasons why Romney lost the election. He didn't really play to the fringe elements, and when he did, he got drawn and quartered in the media. You know, for example, where he talked about half the people are never going to vote for me. Which is true, but his math was off. It's only about 35% that's never going to vote for him. And of course, there's 35% that's never going to vote blue. The country is split right now. It used to be 40-40-20, with that 20% of independents that kind of swung the election. But both parties have lost base by going to the extremes that they have, with the Republicans going to the religious extremes and the Democrats going to the socialist communist extremes in operation. So both parties have lost some base, and I'd say it's closer to a 35-35-30 split right now. And both 35s are hardcore 35. I mean, it doesn't matter. They're voting for their party, and they're not going to switch. It's that 30% in the middle that after 8 years is sick and tired of whatever administration is office. And 2/3 of them swing across the table to the other color, and that swings the administrations. And for the last 40 years, if you look at our election, most of them have been not about bringing in someone who's popular and we know is going to lead the way for sure. Most of the elections have been about getting rid of the assholes who have gotten so bad, got it so screwed up after 8 years that they could run Popeye on the other side and everybody would vote for the cartoon instead of the candidate who's running.
Oh, it's so true. It really is. At this point, after Obama, after 8 years of Obama, again, yeah, you probably could run Popeye on the other side.
and he's lost everybody in the middle. I mean, I know, well, I talk to people all the time everywhere, so hundreds of people who voted for him the first time, didn't vote the second time, and are voting against the Democrats the third time. They've lost the middle.
Well, and there's a big portion of people also. I know in what I do here, I have people all the time who especially on social media, who claim that they don't vote, they won't vote because the votes are fixed. What do you think of that?
Well, the vote's not fixed, but you have the same number on both sides not participated. Half the people who aren't voting would have voted blue, and half of them would have voted red. They're all disgusted and they don't, but it's not all one color. So you end up with the way the population feels, even though you're only getting 2/3 of it or less to actually vote. The others are your extremes who aren't voting. As I said, that's what Donald Trump is doing. He's trying to play to the extremes in the Republican Party so he can consolidate the base. But the closer he gets to the election, once he gets through the primaries, if he successfully secures the Republican convention, he'll no longer have to play to the base, having consolidated it. And the closer you get to an election and Democrat and the presidential debates, the more and more he'll sound like a centrist populist than an extremist. And that's his real base, his populist. He's not a conservative, he's a populist. He has had and expressed a number of times opinions that you wouldn't historically say represent the conservative position on a number of different issues. Now, he's been very successful business and economically, and people associate that with conservative, because people who are successful and accumulate $10 billion aren't walking out on the street and giving the homeless people cell phones and unlimited drilling. They're judicious with their dollars, but in the end, these guys who make all this money and possess all this wealth, what are they doing with it in today's world? Are they leaving it all to their kids? No. What did Warren Buffett do? What did Bill Gates do? What are these people doing with it? They are doing more with these multi-hundred-billion-dollar fortunes than every single government on the planet collectively to deal with, medical issues or food issues or real social issues that help humanity. The U.S. government isn't doing, medicine. That's Bill Gates that's doing that. These are the guys that are setting up the foundations that are developing the things that actually fix things, and that's where the money's getting spent. Sure, it's true. During their lifetime, they accumulate it, and they have a lot of wealth. They use it wisely. They build business. They put people to work. They pay dividends. Sure, it's not all trickling down to the minimum wage people, but 1,000 of them are working instead of 100. And then at the end of their lives, they set up the foundations that do things that make America great. And the guys who did it back in the 1900s did the same thing. Carnegie built the library system in the U.S. Rockefeller built the park system. I mean, over and over and over again, these guys set up foundations that did things that are here today in our society, benefiting generations, 5-6 generations later, and populations 4 times the number that existed at the time. So, is it bad to let them make all that money so that at the end of their life they can deploy it wisely? Should we really be taking it from them while they're making it so that the government can pass it all out, flush it down the toilet, and give it to ISIS with a new round of tanks every time the Iraqis run off?
Well, that's true. Now, there'll be a lot of people who don't think too highly of Bill Gates or any of them. I mean, even Donald Trump, people say, oh, he's a billionaire, he's one of them. And yeah, say what you will. I mean, I'll never crucify somebody for being successful. I mean, that's what really Obama wants to do. Crucify people for being successful, wants to take the entrepreneur out of America. And he's pretty much succeeded at that. And I think that even went back with Bush, but it's gotten worse under Obama.
They don't really want to take them out. They want them to be so intimidated that they will just be quiet if the government steals the fruits of their efforts in larger quantities than they should. They just want them to know who's in charge. You may be the one with the business sense and the great idea and the money and the business and the factory and the employees, but we're the ones actually running things. That's what it's really all about, of course, is reversing the role from representative and servant to master and overlord.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what they're doing, too.
And
so.
the other thing I'd point out is that, when you look at the wealthy guys, you kind of want to distinguish between the ones that worked and created things and did things and those that just ran a bank and printed credit. I mean, one man is actually producing, the other guy is just, putting numbers in a book, which there's nothing to that. That's just a license to steal, which we happen to allow. But that's the kind of wealth that becomes profligate and that is shameful and that people are talking about when they focus on the wealthy. But the reality is there's very few people that fit in that bucket. There's only 11 Federal Reserve bankers in the country, one from each, 11, 12, 13, some ridiculously small number. And those are the people who all of the animosity should be focused on. There shouldn't be any on Gates. Shouldn't be any on Buffett. There shouldn't be any on Trump. They're not political guys. They're just doing business. And the animosity should be focused on the political wealth, and those are the bankers that are controlling the government, manipulating it, and allowing the government to run you into so much debt that you'll never get out of it. Your kids will be 60% slaves instead of the 40% the minimum wage is at now.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, he's set it up so that people can't get out of the minimum wage jobs because minorities now are trapped in 29-hour work weeks.
Right, and you know, I also though don't agree with these kids. I guess these college kids screaming that the minimum wage should be raised and this and that. I mean, you know, one woman, one girl, whatever you want to call her, at this college, she wanted the minimum wage to rise, but she wanted free tuition. And I'm thinking, well, where's the school getting the money to pay you the salary that you want?
Yeah, right. No, you want free tuition, do it online. We're almost there. The Khan Academy is actually better here, but than most of the colleges. But
yeah. So, but you know, I don't know. I guess if you I can't see somebody flipping burgers at McDonald's making $15 an hour.
Well, but you know, the reality here is that they have a point, but they have the wrong solution. And by that I mean is, with today's tax withholding system, somebody making the minimum wage at $8 an hour is only taking home, after a 40% withholding rate, you're only taking home $5.
Yeah.
So that's not enough to get by. Well, what happens if we keep that same tax withholding system and bump the wage to $15 an hour? Well, after 40% withholding, guess how much they take home? $8 an hour. Oh, wait a minute. That's what they're making now. I think maybe the solution is, instead of raising it to $15 an hour and destroying the marketplace for jobs, because, of course, employers aren't going to hire people anymore. They're going to put robots in at that rate. But instead of destroying the marketplace by raising the minimum wage to 15 and taking 40% and letting them go on with 8, which would be just enough to get by on, and certainly much better than 5, almost twice as much. Instead of doing that, why don't we just keep it at 8 and stop stealing the money from them by withholding? Why don't we just let them take home the whole $8 that they're making now? They're Americans. They should be able to keep what they make. It's theirs. They're not going to owe any tax, the government tells us. So why take it from them? Just let them take the whole $8. And if everybody making under $40,000 in the country was allowed to take home everything that they make, instead of having to fork over anywhere from 20 to 40% of it to the United States government on a withholding system before the tax is actually legally due by law next April 15th. And of course, who can force you to pay a tax before it's due by law?
I like your idea, though. I think that's a great idea. Yeah, so anybody...
Is that why the employer has to get your permission to take your money with an allowance certificate?
That's true. But what
if... allowance certificate am I talking about? Oh, yeah, we know it by a different name, don't we? We call it a W-4. Is that why your employer gives you the W-4, because you need to give him permission in order for him to take 40%? What happens if you won't give him allowance? Is he then authorized to just take it from you? If he's authorized and want to just take it from you, why is he asking for your permission and allowance to do it?
Right. Well, you know, I've been told in the past that, you know, before we can get you started, you've got to fill this W-2 form or W-4 form out. I've had them tell, you know, but I've been on jobs, I mean, weeks will go by, and if I say, look, Michael, you've got to fill this out, you know.
You know what else will happen? If you sail out there too far, you'll fall right off the edge of the earth.
You know. So
we're living by myth, not law.
That's true. So how?
Of course, the edge of the earth wasn't controlled by law, but this matter happens to be so, and it's myth that you have to fill this out. That's a de facto practice that violates the law.
So what if you decide not to fill it out? Then what happens? What if your employer says that they can't keep you on if you don't fill? How do you get by all that? You must know how.
Well, what you're confronted with is an unlawful conspiracy to enslave the American people. And the institutions are forgiven their sins by the federal government. So technically, if someone refuses to pay you the amount that they are contractually obligated to pay you after a certain amount of hours of work, and they're not legally entitled or authorized to take any money from you, and they do so anyway, you can sue them in the state court for not honoring their contractual obligation. Now, of course, what happens in today's crooked and Orwellian courts is that the employer will move to remove the suit to federal court, where they'll argue that they had to do it under federal law, even though they can't show any federal law where they're required to do it. And the judges ignore the federal law that says they're not required to do it, and instead allow the suit against the employer to be dismissed so that the employers can continue robbing the American people with impunity and can't be held accountable for it in any court, state, or federal. Because it's removed from state on the fraudulent basis of federal taxation. Once it's in federal court, you have to show them that without authority to actually do the withholding for the money that was taken after having been given notice that he had no authority and no permission, the employer is not entitled to any federal defenses because there's no law he was operating under, and the case has to be remanded back to state court for jury trial under the allegation of contractual obligation. But the federal courts have become as crooked as they can be. As I said on the show a couple of weeks ago, I have complete and simple proof that shows every single person who's been put in prison for IRS income tax crimes in the last 40 years has been done so unconstitutionally by district courts that do not possess the subject matter jurisdiction to prosecute the actions they're prosecuting. Every single civil action for judgment, every single house taken, every single car taken has been done so unconstitutionally by courts without subject matter jurisdiction to enforce the de facto practices of the IRS that they are enforcing, which practices are removed from law, removed from foundation and basis and constitutionally enforceable law, and do not represent what is in the law, which is constitutional, which is the indirect application to impost duty or excise, which is where the income tax attaches to foreign activity, alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and other such taxable commodities. But there is no enforcement authority that can be shown to be applicable to any application of the tax as a direct tax without apportionment under the 16th Amendment, because there is no enforcement clause in the 16th Amendment. So any power allegedly created under the amendment, like the power to tax directly and without apportionment, is unenforceable. But guess what they've been doing?
They've been
enforcing that power to tax directly, because the indirect tax doesn't reach the wages of the citizen. The only way the income tax can reach the wages if it's applied and enforced as a direct tax on everything. But there's no enforcement authorities behind a direct tax. Now, the courts can only take their subject matter jurisdiction from an enabling enforcement clause in the Constitution, because the courts can only take jurisdiction in a civil action under a statute that allows the court to act. But without an enforcement clause in the Constitution, Congress can't write a statute to enforce the power. So with no statute, the court can't find jurisdiction. So with no enforcement clause in the amendment, Congress can't write any statutes to enforce any new or allegedly new or direct tax on income as they have been doing for 50 years. So what the court does is it says, oh, look, it's constitutional because it's indirect. It's an impost, a duty, or an excise, and then they ignore the fact that you're not subject to any kind of impost, duty, or excise, and that the IRS isn't enforcing that version of the tax. They're enforcing an entirely different version as though it were direct and applied to everything. When in fact, if that is the application of the tax under the 16th Amendment, the court ruled it isn't, but even if that is the application, there's no enforcement authority to allow the court to use a statute to take a subject matter jurisdiction over that. So everything they've done has been a complete and total fraud. It's not because the law is unconstitutional. It's because the de facto practices of the IRS are unconstitutional because they're removed from foundation and law. They're removed from a demonstrable enforcement authority that can be exercised. And yet the courts have become Orwellian. It's like the Animal Farm. A cross between the Animal Farm and 1984. It's just mind-boggling. Yes is no, black is white, up is down. It's just mind-boggling. They deny one thing and then later on they turn around and adopt it. The judges in the federal courts have their heads so far up the rear ends, every time they open their mouths, nothing but diarrhea spews out.
That's well said, Thomas. Hey, hang on for a moment. Hold that thought, please, and we'll come back and talk about it some more here on Late Night in the Midlands. Thomas Freed is my guest. You're welcome to call in if you'd like to add to it, folks. Voice your opinions. 803-392-4566. You can also call in using Skype ID LNM Radio, and you could join us over in our chat room too at latenightinthemidlands.com. Just click the chat and listen button. Thomas saying it like it is. I mean, really, I think Ira said that quite often too. It's like they're just spewing diarrhea out of their mouths. Get a graphical visual of that, folks. We'll be back in just a moment. This is Late Night in the Midlands, and I am Michael Vera. Hey, late nighters, I have a secret I want to share with you. What if I told you there's a way to hear some of our show content free on YouTube? Well, it just so happens there's a guy who is honest and supports Late Night in the Midlands big time. And he owns a YouTube channel I highly recommend. Non-Human Entities. Yes, non-human entities. And if you do not have a pencil handy, no sweat. You can just click one of the many banners on our website. Non-human entities. That's non-human entities. Again, just look for them on YouTube or click the banner on latenightinthemidlands.com for non-human entities.
Hello, this is Dick Farrell, here to tell you about OxySilver. Legally available only through CureShop.com and HealthyWorldStore.com. Don't be fooled buying silver products from copycats and criminals. Read Dr. Horowitz's book, Healing Celebrations, to learn how miracle healings can be made to happen through faith, prayer, and a pure diet. Get great immunity using vitamin C, D, and OxySilver. Liquid Dentist, GI Flora Pro, a top-shelf probiotic. Use Green Harvest as a great-tasting meal substitute for energizing organic nutrients and losing weight. And Zeolove, and natural clays for detoxifying your body. More advice, all these products and more are available from theCureShop.com. Register for our free cooperative at healthworldaffiliates.com/4948. That's healthyworldaffiliates.com/4948. And buy Oxy Silver and other great products in package specials at great discounts from theCureShop.com. That's CureShop.com with 2 P's. CureShoppe.com. Or call toll free at 1-888-621-7611. That's 1-888-621-7611. Do it now.
Hey, folks. Do you love late night in the Midlands? Do you miss shows because of the time of night? Do you wish you could listen at your convenience? Well, we can help you out with that one. Become a late nighter without the late nights and subscribe. Become a late nighter for just $5 a month. That's right, $5 a month for the paranormal, the unknown, the known, but most important, the truth. Go to www.latenightinthemidlands.com and subscribe right away to become a late nighter and help keep the LNM Radio Network on the air.
Share our content and use the hashtag LNM Radio for your chance to win a free subscription. Those who use it at least 10 times a month will find themselves entered into a drawing every month to win a free 2-month subscription from Late Night in the Midlands. So spread our news, spread our website, and use hashtag LNM Radio.
LNM fans and late-nighters around the world, have you captured something on that photo or video of yours? Send in your photos and videos of ghosts, orbs, UFOs, Planet X, or just about anything content related by submitting them to the Late Night in the Midlands Facebook group or fan page, or you can submit them on Twitter using hashtag LNM Radio. And if you would rather stay anonymous, then email them to us at mv@latenightinthemidlands.com. We will share them at our new fan page on the LNM website and may even ask you to come on air a few minutes and tell us about your photo or video. Late Night in the Midlands. We're building a bridge to the truth and beyond.
Are you a late nighter? Well, if not, here is one more reason to join the family. We have added the Late Nighters Forum to latenightinthemidlands.com, and it is open for discussion of our many topics and guests. Now you have a place where you can share your thoughts and ideas with the entire Late Nighter community. So become a Late Nighter by subscribing on our website, latenightinthemidlands.com, and start leaving your mark on the Late Nighter community now.
The LNM Radio Network offers a moderated chat room at www.latenightinthemidlands.com. Just click the chat and listen page from the drop-down menu at the top of any page on the website, or click the Listen Live button at the top of the homepage at www.latenightinthemidlands.com.
Is there proof of God's existence in our government's records? Author Jose Collazo brings his years of research into this stunning question to light with his new book. Discover how new and experimental technologies may change our world forever and uncover monumental proof and answers to mankind's greatest questions in God Does Exist, No More Nuclear Testing, and more.
You could find Jose Collazo's book, America's New Slavery, on Amazon.com. Attention LNM Radio Network listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the LNM Radio Network by calling 605-562-4203? No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 605-562-4203 to listen to the LNM Radio Network on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
On the East Coast of the United States, from the capital city, Columbia, South Carolina, you're listening to Late Night in the Midlands with your host, Michael Vera. To talk to Michael Vera, dial 803-392-4566 or around the world on Skype. Just use Skype ID LNM Radio.
Oh, hush, hush. You know, that's something we're not able to do here is hush, hush. I could even, it could even be said that I have a big mouth, but I do. You know, when things aren't right, I'm the first one who will speak up and say so. And I've done it often throughout my career. Some people would call it burning bridges. I would more or less, I wouldn't look at it that way. I wouldn't look at it as burning bridges. I look at it as knocking those bridges down, because I don't want the dirt getting over to my side of the canal, if you will. And so, I really have, folks. I'm not kidding you. I've gotten tons of email from people from all around the world, too. I mean, we've got listeners. You just couldn't imagine the listener base that we have in various areas of the world. We get calls from all over the place, but I get emails just as well, and a lot of them, and long ones too. I mean, people telling me a whole bunch about how they found the L&M Radio Network and how much they appreciate it and love it. And folks, I promise to you, just as I always have, we're always going to keep it straight here. This is the place. Nobody pulls any strings. We're not worried about hurting anyone's feelings. If your feelings get hurt, then chances are we're probably talking directly to you, and you know that deep inside. So, it's sometimes it happens. I mean, I've had some of my best friends, we've thrown a punch at each other when we were kids before we became best friends. So, so maybe that's what's got to happen with you and I here too sometimes, folks. Maybe sometimes we've got to throw a punch at each other before you appreciate what we're doing here, because what we're doing is we're trying to bring the truth back to talk radio, something that has been lacking for a very long time. And you could say, well, there's plenty of alternative media. I agree, there is. But we're not alternative. We're not the alternative to anybody. We're independent media, and we give it to you, just like it is. I mean, we don't sugarcoat anything. We say it like it is. We cover all kinds of things. Some of it is getting to the truth. Some of it is just expanding your mind and helping you think outside the box. But what we do because we do want to get to the truth. And the hosts that we have here on this network, we bring on here because we feel like they have something to offer, and that is the live shows. As far as recorded shows that we cover too, I can't speak out for them. I can only speak out really for our live shows on this network. And I could tell you that every single one of our hosts is out for the truth. And if they weren't, they wouldn't be here. And so, and that's what Late Night in the Midlands stands for. And, folks, we love your interaction too. Your call-ins, your emails, we love that. And I don't think there's anybody out there that could say they've emailed me and have not gotten a reply. It may take me a little while, but I reply to everybody. So keep them coming. And don't forget, my email and Ira's email is posted on our website at latenightinthemidlands.com. If you should subscribe, if you become a late nighter and you should have a problem with accessing anything, just send Ira an email or send me an email. If you send it to me, I usually forward it to Ira. So if you want to kick off the middleman and go right to Ira, you could do so, and we'll take care of it. Sometimes, things don't work right, and sometimes Ira's got to fix it. So don't hesitate to email us and let us know. And we thank you for all your support, and we hope that you'll continue to support us throughout 2016 so we can keep bringing you the best guests with the best information. Like my guest tonight, Thomas Freed. Thomas, you said everything that comes out of their mouth is about as good as diarrhea.
It's just mind-boggling what the courts are putting out. And, of course, a perfect example of it is what the Supreme Court did with the health care law twice, which, if you want, we can review real quickly.
Yes, please do.
The first case was the Sebelius case. Kathleen Sebelius is the health secretary in charge of it, and the group that sued her on the grounds that the penalty can't be sustained under the Interstate Commerce Clause. That was a question put to the Supreme Court basically in the Sebelius case, is can the penalty in the health care law for not buying insurance, can it be sustained under the Interstate Commerce Clause? Because that was the premise of the whole thing, as you recall. Harry Reid, Obama, Nancy Pelosi, all swore up and down, it's not a tax, it's not a tax, it's a penalty. And they made darn sure the word tax never appeared in the legislation or the law. The word tax imposed never appears. The tax collected never appears. No authority to collect the tax or enforce the tax ever appears because it wasn't a tax. It was a penalty under the Interstate Commerce Clause. They specifically insisted that it was a penalty under the Interstate Commerce Clause. And if you queried Pelosi about the Constitution, she asked you if you were kidding. So anyway, that was the question that went to the Supreme Court in the Sebelius case. And as you know, what they said is no, we can't sustain it as a penalty under the Interstate Commerce Clause. This isn't interstate commerce. There's no products changing goods. There's no production. There's no manufacture. There's no factory. This is an individual's choice as to whether or not to buy something. So we can't sustain the penalty under the Interstate Commerce Clause where nothing is bought.
That's right.
And this is aside from the fact that the law prohibits the insurance companies from selling across state lines, so there's no interstate commerce in the insurance business. You have to be an entity inside the state to sell it. You're not allowed to do it across state lines. That's one of the complaints. There's no competition. So the Supreme Court took and said, no, we can't sustain this as a penalty under the Interstate Commerce Clause, but guess what? It's a tax. Even though you can't find the word tax in the law, you can't find the tax imposed, you can't find the tax collected, you can't find the tax authorized for enforcement. The word tax isn't in there. Everyone who wrote it said it's not a tax. But, oh, guess what? It's a tax. And the reason why the tax is okay, because this is just like taxing the choice to buy alcohol, tobacco, or firearms. We're taxing a choice. And wherever a choice is made, that can be the basis for a tax. And that's the end of the decision's explanation of how it qualifies as a tax. Is it taxing a choice, and choices can be taxed. And this, of course, is a completely fraudulent basis, because they're not taxing a choice. They're taxing the absence of a choice.
Well, that's true, and it's, you know,
which is the natural condition.
Mm-hmm.
They're taxing someone's refusal to alter their behavior from that unto which they were born unto. Nobody is born with insurance. They may be covered by their parents' policy, but nobody has insurance when they're born. So to refuse to buy it as you grow old is simply to maintain your natural condition. And there are a number of religions in this country practicing that are recognized that do this. You may not agree with their practices, but the Quakers, the Amish, many of them refuse medical treatment. Maybe not the Quakers, but there are groups, religious fundamentalists, that don't believe in it, and it's always been a religious right to refuse that medical treatment. Of course, the courts are now pursuing parents that allow children to die from lack of treatment based on religious beliefs, and, you know, that's a discussion, but the reality is it's always been a right to live by your religion, to preserve your body in the natural state that it's born into, for the court to argue that the choice of refusing to purchase insurance is a taxable event. It's an absolute law. That's not like buying alcohol or tobacco, cigarettes, or petroleum fuels, where there's going to be a kickback, a consequence to society for you having conducted your choice. With tobacco, you're going to get lung disease, and they're going to have to pay for it. Alcohol, liver disease, society's going to have to pay for it. Petroleum fuels, you put soot in the air, and everybody's got to breathe, and everybody's health goes down. So there are consequences on all these other taxable acts, and there are limits to what can be taxed. Interstate commerce, actual products, foreign persons, etc. But nowhere is the government authorized to tax your natural condition and or its existence, which is the real bottom line on taxing the choice to not buy insurance. He's taxing the natural condition. He's not taxing an active taxable choice or act. You're taxing a refusal to act under religious consciousness for many people, and that tax on your existence would make the tax unconstitutionally direct and without apportionment, which is unconstitutional and cannot exist because you can't have an unapportioned direct tax, even if you argue one exists under the 16th Amendment. This being a tax on your choice concerning health care is not a tax on income, and there is no such tax on absence of choice authorized as a direct, unapportioned tax on the individual for the government to pursue. So this is why he gives you no explanation beyond, oh, it's a choice, so it's a tax, just like all the others. Well, wait a minute. Is it direct? Is it indirect? Is it an impost? Is it a duty? Is it an how is it a tax? The words aren't there. There's no tax imposed. How's anybody supposed to know what it is in court? What's the subject matter jurisdiction for enforcing this? Oh, it doesn't go into any of that. Of course not, because it doesn't exist. The whole decision is a fraud. This amounts to, if they can tax your refusal to act when confronted with a demand, and many people's refusal to act is driven by religious belief, they're taxing your religious beliefs.
That's right.
This is thought police. This is thought police. It's now a tax. It's now a taxable event to think that the insurance companies aren't worth doing business with because they just take your money and don't pay.
That's right. Thomas, we've got a call here. We've got 909 area code. You're on Late Night in the Midlands. First name, where you're calling from?
Michael again,
hey,
and
Michael.
Sugarloaf. Hey. Okay, so I agree with what you're saying, what the guest is saying, except for the last little portion. And so far as it does actually cost other people money. I understand there's people who don't take health care at all. Totally get that. Totally respect it. Totally love it. And I don't believe in having to have mandatory health care at all either. But at least in my state, they can't refuse you service. So let's say I don't have insurance, and I cruise in, and I have to have whatever done to me. They can't refuse it. So somebody's still paying for it, right?
Thomas?
Well, there's a whole lot of variables in play. The discussion has to begin with, do you have a right to the time and services of another individual? Rights are inherent. You have rights are inherent. You have the right to speak. You have the right to think. But do you have the right to the time and services of another individual, like a doctor?
Okay.
I would argue you don't have any right to somebody else's time and services. That's why doctors take a Hippocratic oath.
Correct.
Is because they're taking an oath to serve the people. So why is the government involved?
Mm-hmm. Well,
is the government giving us doctors? Is the government giving us doctors?
Well, in that instance, yeah. I mean, if somebody goes in...
What they're giving us are insurance companies that are taking a big piece of the profit out. And the insurance companies aren't giving us doctors. They're shrinking the networks. And the doctors are quitting because the insurance companies don't pay. So this whole system based on the false belief that you have a right to somebody else's time and services is destroying everybody's ability to get quality care.
I agree with that.
So,
who pays? But who pays? Somebody goes in. They don't have insurance. They have nothing. Okay, I mean, now this is the past. Everybody has to have it now. I get that. But in the past, somebody could go in, and at least here, I don't know about everywhere, but they have to treat you. And I agree, Hippocratically, they have to treat you. That was their oath. I get that. I totally get that. But their whole whatever their hospital and their whatevers and the nurses, somebody's got to pay for it. And in this instance, it was they would go back to the government and make them pay for it anyway.
Well, the question becomes to what level should the government be involved? When an alcoholic comes in after 40 years of drinking and needs a new liver because he has sclerosis of the liver, he tells the doctor he's not going to reform, he's going to keep drinking. Should he get a new liver?
No.
Or should they let him die?
Well, I think they've already resigned to die at that point. No, I don't think so.
You can give him a new liver. Should you give him a new liver, or do you let him die?
Well, and that's where. No, I'm not saying. I totally don't agree with that.
So you see that we need to draw a line at what level of service is going to be provided. So the reason why we have a problem with costs is because the government isn't drawing realistic lines. The government is paying for gender transformation sexual surgery for people in prison. For God's sake. No wonder we have a cost problem.
Okay.
People who want a psychological sex change, all they got to do is go out and get arrested.
Anyway, damn, dude.
Then in prison, they stab each other, and they're both good for sex change surgery.
Okay. No, I just thought it was a valid point. My dad's he's been an insurance broker for a very long time, and he was really worried. I remember when all this was going down, and he we would talk, and he'd be like, I think my business is just going to go to hell, and I don't, it's really a bummer. And I thought so too, because that's what he does is health insurance, or did. Oh, he still does, but so he's like, but privately, obviously, when you didn't have to have it, everyone didn't have to have it. And then, but I was like, but in my mind, I thought, Dad, think about it, dude. If everyone has to have it, then you're going to start getting, there's alternatives. I don't know what the government offers, just like baseline, but, for a couple extra bucks or however much, whatever. So it didn't destroy the insurance industry like everyone thought.
Well, no, but they're not drawing reasonable lines anymore. When an indigent person comes in with an accident because they fell asleep at the railroad yard and the train ran over their arm and it got severed, obviously the hospital is going to have to take off the arm and close it up, stitch it up, and off they go. And that should be the end of it. You treat the life, you save the life, you keep the person alive, you provide the care that had to be provided in the emergency to keep the person alive. But guess what happens next? Next, they spend $250,000 giving that indigent homeless person a new arm.
Right.
Or should we have just saved the life and on it goes? Now, if he's got the money to buy the new arm or to negotiate with the doctor to arrange some privately between the two of them, some way for him to pay and the doctor to minimize the fee under his oath, well, that's different. But what level should government be involved in? We are not drawing reasonable lines at the level that we provide. You can't spend $1 million to spend every person who's going to die next week.
No, I agree. When it becomes a problem of, and then let's just take it a step further. That person who got their arm taken off is now going to draw a disability, which we also have to pay for.
Well, the reality is that most of these people who have made the choice not to have insurance, and many of them are driven by the religious beliefs, and they're not going to go to the doctor. It's not going to cost you more. What's going to cost you more is the fact that nobody can afford insurance anymore because they screwed up the insurance for 50 million people in order to give insurance to 7 million people who are indigent and are never going to pay a single dime in premium. Now, why were they given insurance? Why weren't they given access to real doctors, real clinics, real medical services? That's what they need. They don't need insurance and paperwork and forms and bill notices and deductibles. They ain't going to pay any of it. They ain't going to pay any of it. They're never going to pay. So why would you destroy insurance for 50 million people to give 7 million people who don't know what insurance is, are never going to pay the premiums, they're going to be carried the whole time, and they're just going to screw it up for everybody else? What they needed was a network of facilities and clinics where they could go and get real help. And guess what? We've got it. We've got it. It's called the United States military. All over the country, we have bases and military clinics and the facilities of military doctors that are available. And if the government wanted to help the indigent, they'd open up those facilities and let the people go there. The military doctors would love to help. They're looking for something to do. They're just sitting on the base. You know, 2 guys came in last week. Oh, we're real busy. Why don't we do something like create a U.S. Medical Health Corps, where we take away the VA civilian administration and replace it with a responsible quasi-military command of doctors. Let them take over the whole VA network, combine it with the military bases, and set up a system of doctors, clinics, and facilities where people who can't afford insurance can go and get real government health care instead of fake insurance.
You're right. It's not government health care.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. I've said that before, Thomas. I've said, you know, if they really wanted to help, how about, you know, my idea was, you know, these people crying about free tuition and that. Well, if you want to become a doctor and you want your tuition paid for, how about you get it paid for, and when you come out, you have so many hours that you have to volunteer in one of these clinics.
Oh, no, it's 7 years of service, just like the military. We'll give you a scholarship to go to school, and we'll send you to med school, too. When you get out, you do 7 years of service in the U.S. Health Corps, just like Roger Staubach and David Robinson did 5 years and 3 years, I think, in the Navy before they were allowed to go play professional ball. So you do the scholarship, you do the time, and when you get out after 7 years, you can start your own clinic. And now the government is providing an army of doctors and nurses and clinics and EMTs. Now that will provide health care. Insurance companies are going to give you nothing but robbery. They're going to take your money, deny your claims, tell you it's deductible, and you'll be putting in $20,000 a year before you see 1 penny in payout. Now, most people don't have $20,000 a year in expenses, which means they're never going to get a dime on these insurance policies they're buying. They simply don't pay. A much better solution for most people would be to cancel the insurance policy, bank the $1,500 a month they're making, and at the end of each year, they'd have around $20,000 in a savings account. And after 5 years, it would be over $100,000. It could be used as a health savings account. And if you didn't ever get sick or have a catastrophic injury, because of course with $100,000, if you ever get hurt, you go right to the hospital, you pay for your own care, and while you're there, now you go and buy your insurance policy. They hand them the rest of the bill since they can't deny you pre-existing conditions anymore. But my point is after 5 years, you'd have $100,000 in a health savings account that then you could convert into a retirement savings account and let it continue to grow at the same pace as you banked the money in your own HSA retirement account rather than gave it to the insurance companies to get a letter from them every time you filed a claim that said, sorry, we're not going to pay.
I see. Well, interesting. You know, I don't have health insurance right now, and I haven't. And when I had my heart attack back in 2014, the hospital tried to push the Obamacare on me, and the one lady who comes around with that little thing on wheels, that calculator on wheels to find out how you're going to pay. She says, oh, well, it's the law. You should have it. And I said, well, no, not here in South Carolina. My governor said it's illegal. So I don't have it. And, there's about $27,000 bill, in which, I'm paying on, but I've also got some help on it too. They had a program that helped with a good deal of it, but, and where that comes from, I don't know. But all they did was, like you said, Thomas, they did the life-saving procedure. And since then, and this was in September of 2014, I've not seen a cardiologist since. I mean, I've gone to the doctor for various things, but I've not seen a cardiologist. So
Sounds like they did a good job.
Yes.
We have the best medical system on the planet. It hasn't been completely destroyed yet, but as I said, more and more doctors are dropping out, and fewer and fewer are joining up, because joining up now means you're a bureaucrat. You got to manage paperwork or find someone competent who can. And
here's my whole thing too. Is here I'm somebody who it'd be nice to go see a cardiologist and make sure everything's kind of okay. But, I'm not sitting here saying, the government should be paying for it. I'm figuring, at some point I'll get to that and I'll pay for it myself. It's just the way it's going to be. I'm not looking for...
And that's the way it's always been. People have always had to manage a choice in terms of how much money, time, and effort they could afford to give up to go pursue treating an illness. In the old days, you were out in the wilderness. It was a big deal to go 30 miles to see a doctor. You did it if you had to, but if you didn't, you fixed it yourself to whatever extent possible. Well, of course, a lot of people die because they couldn't get to a doctor, but that's a function of how many doctors there are. It's not really managing your own health care.
Well, right. Right, but the thing is like, I don't expect my neighbor should have to pay for my health care or any of that. And I think emergency health is a lot different, because what we have also, what I don't think has been mentioned yet, is that the Obama administration also wants to extend that to illegal immigration too. He feels like
right. It's another mechanism to buy votes. As many people as they can pile into the pool on the free giveaway, of course.
Yeah,
that will keep people here and encourage them eventually to vote blue when they can.
That's right. Caller, anything else?
Oh, I didn't even realize I was still on. Yeah, totally. No, nothing else. But anyway, great subject. Keep the work. I didn't even realize I was still on the phone. Good job. Okay, so perfect. You guys are right.
All right, thank you very much for the call. I appreciate it. And that's because we're not like a lot of those radio shows that just you get half your question and they cut you off. But Thomas, we're down to the end here. We got a few minutes left. What I'd like to do is give you the floor, get out anything that you'd like, and I thank you for joining us again here, and we'll have to have you back again very soon, especially throughout this election year here. I think that we'll have plenty to talk about.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, like I say, Hillary actually might get indicted. There's a lot of people who think Obama might not be excited about her. And they'd rather see Biden or Warren than Hillary. They would immediately have to go out and recruit. But, anyone who needs help out there dealing with the Internal Revenue Service, either administratively or if you happen to be in court with them in the district court, I can help you. It's irszoom.com. My email is tom@irszoom.com. The educational website is taxfreedom.com, www.taxfreedom.com. And anyone who wants to get informed on these topics can go there and read. I've got an economic plan for fixing practically everything in America. I've laid out some of the ideas this evening. And again, we need to get on, and everyone needs to recognize and understand the problem is really in the courts. They're just flat out lying to you. And I wanted to talk about the King v. Burwell decision, which was the second healthcare decision, which is the second time that the Supreme Court has to rewrite the law on its own in order to make the program survive. And of course, the judges aren't supposed to change the law or rewrite it. They're supposed to look at it, take what it says, rule it, and then deal with it. So the proper decision in the first case was not to say, this is a tax and we're upholding it. The proper decision was, of course, to say, I'm sorry, we can't sustain this penalty under the Interstate Commerce Clause, but if you take the law and rewrite it as tax legislation, we might be able to sustain that. But they're not allowed to do it for them.
That's right. That's right. Well, Thomas, listen, I thank you so much for being here tonight, and we've got you linked up on latenightinthemidlands.com. So, again, if you need help fighting the gang, the IRS gang, this is your guy right here. Right, Thomas?
You bet. We've got them all over the country. They're in fits, and they can't get away from the issue of subject matter jurisdiction. It is the first offense that every defendant is entitled to, and they have absolutely no subject matter jurisdiction. It's 12b1 under the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, and without that jurisdiction to enforce the direct and apportioned tax that the IRS practices in enforcement, the courts are unconstitutionally entertaining these actions. Now, where they deem that the tax and admit that the tax is indirect as an impost, duty, or excise, well, then you're under 12b3, lack of personal jurisdiction, because those impost, duty, and excises don't reach the individual citizen.
That's right. All right. Well, Thomas, thank you again, my friend. Keep safe, keep warm, and we'll talk to you again very soon, probably within the next 3 to 4 weeks. I'll probably be getting right back a hold of you. I'm sure we're going to have a lot more to talk about, so thank you.
Good, Michael. Love to do it. Always a pleasure. Enjoyed chatting. I hope I wasn't too abrupt with the call. I wasn't really trying to...
Oh, no. Great stuff.
But I do like to talk.
All right. Well, I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you.
Good, Michael. Thank you.
All right. Happy New Year to you.
You too. Good night.
Good night. All right, everybody. Thomas Freed. He is a very passionate man, and boy, is he knowledgeable when it comes to this stuff, And he's right about that whole transgenderist type surgeries, sex change surgeries in prison. I mean, are you kidding me? Really? Why don't you just give them Meals on Wheels too, and a debit card? To get order whatever they want. Maybe they could order Domino's and all that good stuff too, but a sex change in prison. I mean, it's the kind of thing, this is, look, for that, something like that to get through, you've got to look at Obama and his little situation over there, and you've got to wonder, is it not just the first black president, as they say? That's what they say. I don't believe that. But how about the first gay president? The first man. I mean, there's a lot of firsts going on over there. If they would just let the cat out of the bag, wow. They've already put the rainbow on the White House. I mean, what the hell? They might as well tell us the rest, right? Interesting night here with two guests. Thank you to both Michael and Thomas tonight, and our caller Michael, who called in twice. With both guests, I appreciate that. Somebody's got to call in, right? Tomorrow night, I've got Seth Breedlove joining me. We're going to talk about a movie that they're making, or it might be done now. I don't know. I know they were in the process. I think last I spoke to them, called Small Town Monsters. So we're going to talk about, I'm sure, some hairy creatures will come up, such as Bigfoot and things like that. That's tomorrow night. I've got Crow 777 joining me on Thursday. He has a YouTube channel, very popular one at that. On Friday, I've got Eric Jewell joining me, and we'll be talking about Obama's Army. And then, of course, next week is a whole nother ball game. So just keep your eye on the schedule. We change it around Saturday. I get in there and I change it for the following week. All right. With that, I hope you enjoyed our new show tonight as well with Thomas Fry. Good show there, and it will get better as time goes along. But he did a great job tonight. And so another live show added to the schedule here on the L&M Radio Network. We're going to keep pounding it out, keep bringing it to you folks, and we hope that you'll keep supporting us. Don't forget, donate. We could use your donations. It'll help us catch up on some bills we fell behind last month. We didn't make our quota, So, we've got to pay the bills, folks. If we don't pay the bill, I'm not going to tell you we want to make $140,000 a year like some networks do. But we do need enough at least to keep the lights on. And if we could do that, we'll be happy. We're not greedy. We don't need $60,000 a month or any of that stuff, or, whatever, Dick Hoagland makes over there, now. He was at, 7,000 subscriptions he was at in September. You do the math on that. I mean, what is that, like $30,000? And Keith would take, I think, 20%, he told me. 20% of that. And so, and it's probably a lot further now. So Dick Hoagland's making a killing over there. And see, if I was let me just say it. If I was a bullshitter, folks, I'd do so well. I'd make so much money. I can't bullshit you. I keep it real. That's why, we get the crumbs. But that's okay. We're happy with that. Because we've got a great listening audience. We've got more and more people joining us every day, listening to this network. And that's important because that's how we're going to wake people up. So, hey, I thank you all for tuning in. I ask that you keep your eyes posted to the sky because you never know what you might see. Keep your ears posted to this broadcast because you never know what you might learn. And, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be back with you tomorrow night right here on the LNM Radio Network. Good night, everyone.